Got a smile on his face, Freddie Gibson. Number 2, Mark Scaife, is in 23rd position, and number 6, Anders Olofsson, in 15th spot. Brock and Jones are still out there dictating.
And it's interesting too, the 2 Holden Racing Team cars both haven't pitted yet, both Brock and Jones. So a stop still to come, which should push Tony Longhurst and Glenn Seaton up the order.
Well, Longhurst has been rock solid here all day. We're only early part of the race.
He's a guy to keep an eye on, isn't he? It reminds me of 1988. He didn't come into the race as a favourite, but he hung in there, and he lasted out to the finish. So Tony Longhurst, keep an eye on him.
Anders Olofsson, who was trying to unlap himself in the number 6 car, doing a heck of a job here. Brocky's got the tail sideways out of there, probably thinking to himself, that couldn't be Scaife, could it? And the answer is no, it's not. And he will probably let him go because it'll be pit time very shortly for Peter Brock and Brad Jones.
So Anders currently 15th, trying to unlap himself. Here's our race leader, Peter Brock, still on the tyres he started with. 28 laps into the 2 1000.
It's quick in a straight line, the Brockmobile.
No short of Mombo from the HRT Chevys. We take this great shot from the Channel 7 camera as they fly down Conrod Straight, 280 kilometres an hour.
He leaves the gap open for him.
Anders not afraid to go deep under brakes. Oh, he's getting a little bit twitchy there. Brock gives him room, but he's run out of road on the way out. Thank you very much.
They tried that in Sweden. We repass.
So, these guys, as long as his tyres continue to hold up, there's no reason why he can't stay out there for a long time. His fuel consumption figures will be way ahead of schedule with all this wet running and, of course, the pace car laps. So Brock is very strong at this stage.
Ask yourself the question, why would they not have pitted under the pace car? Everyone seemed to take advantage of that lull in the proceedings to get their tyres right. Why would why would the team have stayed out and not taken advantage of that lull?
Interesting question. I guess if you're the head of the pack, you can sprint a little further away from them. And if there was no need, but I'll tell you what, there's a guy ranging up with headlights blazing who's going to debate all that with Peter very shortly.
3.5 seconds as they came across the start-finish line that time, the gap between Brock and Tony Longhurst. Tony's really catching him hand over fist here. Anders Olofsson trying to unlap himself. He'll try and squeeze through Brock, but Brock knows his real opposition is that yellow car with the headlights ablaze. Brock looking up the rear view mirror there. It's full of red and yellow.
See, Brocky hasn't been into the pits, therefore he's on the wets on which he started. They must be getting a bit tired by now, and with an increasingly dry line, that's going to create
Everyone else has certainly have been, Doug. Brock and Mazira continue to lead the race. Longhurst and O'Brien in second, Jones and Lowndes in third. Seaton Radishit's run 4 in the PJ car. Then it's Jones and Parson in the second of the PJ machines.
Out of 6, 24, Quick Scott doing great there in the top 6. In position 7, 11, Perkins and Hansford hanging on. In position 8, car 7, Percy in England, the Coca-Cola Commodore. Good strong run there. Johnson and Bow still hanging in the 9th, and rounding out the 10, Reed and Ashby in the Lansvale Smash Repairs Commodore.
11th is Gardner and Crompton, 12th Allen and Medecky in the Synovus Falcon. So Alan Moffat's car's coming up through the pack. 13th is 27th Finnegan and Williams in the Bobby McGee's car. 14th Jones and Dunstan in the Ampol Max 3, and 15th is Bond and Olofsson in 16th position as they go across the line. It's Morrison Hager in the Diet Coke BMW, the first of the 2 leader cars. The race within a race. Brooklyn and Blanchard run in 17th spot. Trimble and Gary Walden, the Daily Planet car, run in 18th. 19th is Baird and Riley, the second of the Diet Coke cars. 20th is McLeod and Burton in the NZ Automotives.
In 21, car 56, Kane and Murphy in the Carina. 22, O'Brien and Callahan in the Everlast Batteries Commodore. In 23, look at that, Mark Scaife in car 2. 24, Bryson Johnson. And in position 25, Warden Ellery in the Technophone Commodore. 26, car 20, Palmer and Peters. In position 27 at the moment, Russell and Gillen in the Union Steel Commodore. In 28, 35, Wilson and Nicholson. In position 29, 57, Siders and Letcher in the Peugeot. And in position 30, 52, Dillman and Cotter in the Clark 6 BMW.
In 31st spot, Iob and Conway. 32nd is Shembering and Crick. Then 33rd spot, Taylor and Bell in the Xerox shop car. 34th is McCall and Gazzard, the Dairy Vale Commodore. And 35th, Spurden McConville. I'll tell you what, it's still close. Hills and Rogers run in 36th spot. 37th is Yulden and Stenik, and 38th is Hardman and Fall in the Hyundai. Not be going too bad at all as they make the exit out of that turn.
Just been checking the stats, and it looks like Jonesy's flying again. He's recording laps 5 seconds quicker than Brock's at the moment, and that might be attributable to the hand-grooved slicks. They're hand-grooving their slicks in the Peter Jackson team at the moment, and certainly getting some advantage out of that.
And Tony Longhurst, as we went through the full grid for you, could see just snipped up the inside of Brocky, been gaining hand over fist on Brocky, who's due to go to the pits in the next lap or so. So Tony starts to sprint away from the field in the Benson and Hedges Commodore up to BP Cutting again, having a fine ride and putting a little pressure, I think, on Charlie O'Brien, his team partner, who will take over the controls of the car and hasn't done a lot of touring car racing outside of the Sandown 500. Hope you're enjoying the Tooheys 1000 from Mount Panorama, Bathurst. The 1994 condition continues after this break. Back here at Mount Panorama, out comes the pace car again. No reports of incidents as we work lap 31 of 161 with a race time of 1 hour 32 minutes.
Apparently there's a car in the chase at the moment. That's the problem. I think we're looking at it there. That's obviously a dangerous spot for anyone to park. And until they clear car 49, the pace car...
That's the Brett Yulden car, but it's not used to anyone. It's been sitting there for quite a number of laps. So they're going to give it the heave-ho out of the chase, just in case. I can understand that. In the meantime, in comes Mark Scaife again for another pit stop.
Yeah. Scaife's luck is not improving.
Let's go down to Andy.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Mark Scaife getting out of the car, as you can well see. Gentlemen, Jim jumping in. I just spoke to Fred Gibson. He said, we're going to put on some intermediates, and we're so far behind, we're going to give Jimmy a bit of a run as it is.
Oh, that's that's great, but I think at this stage that they would certainly like to see themselves up in the top 10, and that's probably what it needs today. I think Anders Olofsson's been doing a stellar job for the Gibson team, where he's running on the track at the moment. Tony Longhurst continues to lead the 94 grade race. And
before the pace car came out, was going pretty quickly too. He was recording times around the 2:35 mark. The quickest man on the circuit before the pace car was Alan Jones, who's been turning laps of 2 minutes 31, 2 minutes 32, which is remarkable in these conditions. But Longhurst passed Brock, as we saw. He's about 3 seconds a lap quicker, which would explain why the Brock pit, the 05 pit, is presently preparing intermediates. It'll be his first tyre change, and I think in the conditions it'll be the right choice too. Well, here comes the Mazda MX-6 down Conrod Straight, leading our field with Tony Longhurst in command. Wayne Gardner carrying our Qantas race cam. You love the conditions, do you, Wayne?
Oh, they're just wonderful, mate.
Where's your sense of humour?
Is that what you call it? I knew I shouldn't have got out of bed this morning.
Now. I mean, it's a long race. I mean, it must have been more diabolical last year for you, or even the year before.
Well, obviously I'm in a lot better setup now and a better car, but it's difficult to know what the conditions are. You know, you throw wets on, then it dries out, then you got to put intermediates on. Then, of course, then it rains again, and you got to come back in again. So it's hard to know what to do.
I mean, the TAFE boys must have done just the most unbelievable job on your car this morning.
Yeah, you know, they deserve, you know, a few beers tonight, believe me. I mean, it was unlucky what happened. There was no flags out there what I could see. I came around the corner only on the first lap, and I hit the oil that was all spread all over the track by HRT, and I spun out and I hit the wall. It's certainly unexpected, and it certainly worked me up, that's for sure.
Wayne, Dougie Mulray, mate, you're talking to us. Have you got communication with your pits again?
No, I don't. I'm doing it via Channel 7 when you guys aren't talking to me.
Any messages?
Help!
Son, the car looked so good when the boys got it back out in the circuit for you. We couldn't believe it was the car you damaged. We thought that you'd probably actually put the stickers on the spare car.
Yeah, no, the TAFE crew did an unbelievable job. I really haven't had time to even look at it. I was walking around with my head hung low thinking we're out of the race, you know, particularly after a sensational week what we've had. And then, of course, they turn up in the group with it.
Well, you're in 8th spot at the moment, so not all is lost, you know.
Absolutely not.
I mean, this is a long day. There are a few privateers that have been up there in the top 10, and you look solid. I mean, if the conditions which appear to be around all day,
yes,
I really wonder whether you'll get a lick at a dry track at any stage.
It'd be nice, because we've got the car actually working very well. We're a little bit down horsepower, which we're aware of, but you know, if we can just keep the thing in a straight line and keep it off the walls, I think we may be there.
You know, I was just thinking it could be worse. You could be on a Honda.
Yeah, I got to admit, when I crashed this morning, when I hit the wall, and I was thinking, thank Christ I'm in a car, not a bike. It would have hurt.
Well, listen, we're all riding with you with our Qantas race cam. Have a good one.
Thanks.
Thanks,
bye.
son. Wayne Gardner, as we go in for the pit stop now, the first one for the Alan Moffat Synovus Vitamins entry. Doesn't that sound well? I think it was tuned by Bill France Jr.
It's a wonderful noise. It's great to hear these big Ford and Chevrolet V8s thundering around the mountain, even in these appalling conditions. Now, I was just looking again at the electronic stats we have here, Mike, and it seems that Olofsson passing Brock was a smart move. It put him back on the right lap, and of course with the pace car out, he's now up with the top runners once again.
And we saw the pit stop there while we were talking to Wayne, with Brock out and Thomas Mazera in. And Thomas rates this circuit one of his favourites. Of course, he partnered Tony Longhurst to victory here back in 1988, the first to his 1000. Well, we've got rid of the 49 car, and it has been towed out of the sand trap. Was in position 39. They've given it a couple of privateers, Steniken and young Yulden. They're back behind the wall. It's the pace car. We'll have another lap after this. The lights go out, then one clear lap. And I'll tell you what, you are going to see a race here when the pace car brings them past with the lights out, because Alan Jones has been sitting back there in third spot. He's ready to pounce, as Dougie just mentioned. Terrific times by Alan Jones.
3 and 4 seconds faster than anyone else in the field. So I reckon when the pace car goes off, Jones is the man to watch.
This is what happened with the 49 car that went off down at Caltex Chase. He got on to the sand and it stopped him, but you've got to get onto the sand.
Hard to imagine how he could lose it there, you know. He just seemed to move off to the inside, under control. There was no apparent brake failure or steering failure.
Probably the faster cars coming past and putting a lap on him may have unsteadied him. I'd say that's probably what's happened. He's lost concentration, and he did a heck of a job pulling the car up just the same. Hope you're enjoying the 94 Tooheys 1000 with all the drama coming to you from Mount Panorama at Bathurst, and also to our viewers watching us live through TV2 in New Zealand. A fabulous race today. It's still got a long way to go, and it is a race.
I thought we'd seen it all in 92. That was the most dramatic race I've ever been involved with, but this has the elements of the greatest race in the 1000's history.
Peter McKay, who has been a stalwart for the 2-litre category, brings in the Technophone Mercedes 190 for the pit stop.
Peter McKay, who's been a bit of a critic of the V8 series. Maybe he wishes he was out in a Falcon or a Holden.
I think he's enjoying the run today. We have a race within a race, the 2-litre cars. And I think, as you'll discover late in the day, the cars will come into it. Greg Hansford now carrying our Castrol race cam in Larry Perkins' car. Can you hear us, Greg?
Yes, I can, Mike.
Having a good day?
It's just starting.
I know. You like to get to work early in the morning, though, don't you?
Oh, 7 o'clock was too early this morning.
Now, has Larry told you anything about the car? Is it doing everything that it should be doing?
He's just radioed through and said the car was perfect and just be careful, so that's all I can do. But this morning in that warm-up, it was so slippery out here, it was unbelievable. It had wet the tyres on, it felt like we were on slicks.
Greg, Doug Mulray, you won the Tooheys in 93, the 12-hour in 94. You're on a hat-trick, mate. Does that add to the pressure?
No, Doug, it doesn't. But I guess it's hard enough to win one, let alone two, so I mean, 3 would be unbelievable.
See, he wasn't under any pressure at all until you mentioned it.
Just putting the mockers on him. In 13th position at the moment, just to add to your concerns, if you're a superstitious man, Greg.
No, I haven't been superstitious. I won the Swedish Grand Prix with number 13 on my motorcycle years ago, and after that I didn't worry about it.
Good on you, Greg. We'll catch up with you later. Thanks for that chat.
Thanks, Mike.
Greg Hansford, one of the true lions of motorsport. And a pity, really, that we don't see him doing more touring car racing. I think Larry Perkins chose the right guy. Let's go down to Andy in the pits.
Yeah, thanks. The Winfield car, number 6, has just left the pit enclosure. Anders Olofsson has got out. Colin Bond has jumped in for his first ride of the day. A very quick pit stop, about 12.5 seconds.
Thanks, Andy. We've seen quite a few in and out of the pits, including the 015 car. The pace car has the lights out. We'll be going back to racing next time they come past the booth.
Some of the other leading contenders who came in under the pace car, Seaton, Grice and Lowndes. You just saw Olofsson rejoin the race.
They come across Skyline as Phil Ward comes in the Technophone Commodore. Beautiful looking car, this. Phil, of course, runs 2-litre. Decided he wanted to run up front with the big boys. That looks ominous. That's going tail into the pits.
That's not a tyre change. We've got a major problem there.
So we'll catch up on that. But the car has been running strongly here over the last 3 days at Mount Panorama. And a pity to see the car behind the wall. The sister car, the 2-litre car, the Mercedes 190, was in just a little earlier. Was running in 32nd position. Was up a little higher than that before we had our first yellow flag caution period. That will give you an idea of the weather from Mount Panorama, Bathurst. The race will resume this time around. Watch Alan Jones. Keep an eye on him. He's going to go sprinting here with Tony Longhurst. I don't know how long it's going to take them to complete 1,000 Ks at Mount Panorama today.
The pace car's been out on a couple of occasions, and it certainly slows things down, but it has to be done when cars are travelling at 280, 300 kilometres an hour down this section of the track in particular, and you've got nil visibility. If there's somebody beside the track or on a possible exit point, they absolutely have to stop the race. We don't want any more tragedy at Mount Panorama in 1994.
In the early days, you remember they used to take the trucks out onto the course during the race and load the vehicles, and fortunately things have changed a little safer now. Positional changes. Longhurst, Alan Jones, that's 1-2. Greg Crick, who must be up close enough to third now, followed by Gardner and Percy.
Here's the restart.
Coming up for the restart now, beneath the Bridgestone Bridge, and ready to sprint. Crowd comes alive on pit straight as the great race resumes. And it's Tony Longhurst of Queensland who brings them across the strike. Alan Jones back there in second. Greg Crick is the next one, then followed by Wayne Gardner. Then it's Russell Ingle. The Lansvale Smash Repairs car is down a lap, I believe, on them, but still running in that same group. Well, no, it's not. I'm sorry. That's in 6 spots. Steve Reed has taken over. So they head up Holden Hill again. They're all starting to get a little nervous. Jones wants to lead this. He looks strong in the blue car, and Longhurst works his way across to the outside. Prior to the pace car coming out, these were the 2 fastest runners on the track. You're seeing him here leading the race at the moment. Longhurst was doing something in the region of 2:35s, and we had the Jones car doing 2:31s, 2:32. So it should be interesting over the next couple of laps to see whether Jonesy can press home that advantage. They're all on intermediates at this stage. The drama that faces the pit bosses is the one you can see every time you get a shot of that sky. The track rapidly drying at this juncture, but we got some ominous clouds over this mountain. For all those entering our watch and win competition through Legion Telecall, 0055 606 30. The positional changes, you have to keep ringing all day. You might win that new Commodore SS. Longhurst, Jones, Crick, that's the order across the top of the mountain. And right behind them, the 2 Coca-Cola cars, which continue to circulate very strongly. They've got a fantastic package, haven't they, the Peter Jackson team this year. They've run consistently and well. They've placed in just about every circuit. They're beautifully balanced on this most difficult of Australian circuits, and Jones certainly has paid them all sorts of credit. Every time he's been interviewed, he's spoken of the excellence of the preparation, and you're seeing the result of that right now. Absolutely. Tony Longhurst continues to lead, and Tony is the 6th leader today, including Seaton, who led for part of lap 1. So 6 different leaders of the great race. Down towards the Caltex Chase, and Greg Crick doing a great job. Oh, he was doing a great job, but he's gone sideways. Greg, he was the best of the privateers, Greg. Just keep it down, bury it. Yeah. It's going to be like Rudolf Nureyev on ice here in a moment. Now he's just got to feather it on, bring the tail around and gas it now, which he does. So that was a little misdemeanor. I don't know whether we've had him drop a spot. The little Diet Coke Commodore goes through. We'll have a look at it again, the replay. A dab on the brakes coming into the corner. Goes in tight, but then the car... Oh, he got a nudge. Oh. That's Wayne, unfortunately, who's given Crick the flick. So through went Gardner, a little touch there. Track beginning to dry. You can see across to the right there. A distinct dry line starting to come out, and Jones is still tagging our race leader, Tony Longhurst, and then the 2 Diet Coke cars, not the Diet Coke, but the Coca-Cola team cars of Gardner, Crick and Scott. They've decided to go on in and change over. Gary Scott of Queensland, his co-driver today on the Pinnacle Motorsport entry, Commodore, the strongest running of the privateer cars, and that is great to see here.
Yeah, well, I was about to give Crick a bagging. I was going to suggest that being up so high in the field, it was a shock to him, and it turned his head around, but clearly Wayne gave him the nudge there coming through Caltech's chase.
It's probably just a little overrun. They head across the mountain as we're going to check out for you on our Shell scorecard how the top 10 are running here at Mount Panorama today. Tony Longhurst of Queensland, probably having his last start in a Commodore. He's going to be a Ford man next year. Leads this race over Jones and Parsons third. Gardner and Crompton in the Coke Commodore, followed by Persing and Ingle in the second Coke car. Great for Reed and Ashby. The Lansvale Smash Repairs car runs in fifth. Sixth spot is Finnegan and Williams in the Bobby McGee's Commodore. Then it's Crick and Scott. They've just taken their pit stops. Eighth is Johnson and Bow, the Shell FAI Falcon. Then Perkins and Hansford in the Castrol car. And rounding out the 10, Jeff Allen and Andrew Madecki and Alan Moffat, Synovus Falcon EB. We'll be back in just a moment. Back at the 1994 Tooheys 1000, coming to you on the 7 Network live and also through TV2 in New Zealand. Here's our race leader as we work lap 36 of 161. We're 1 hour almost 49 into the race. Nothing has changed at the front of the pack. There's nothing in it between our race leader, and that's Tony Longhurst. 1 lap car separating he and Alan Jones, who runs second in car number 30, the Blue Falcon.
Longhurst, Jones and Gardner all turning 31s at the moment, which puts them 3 seconds up on the rest of the field. They're flying, those three.
And, of course, John Bow is probably the quickest out there on the racetrack, according to Alan Horsley, who's timing 2:29, and he's starting to make a run at the leaders. Let's go down to Mark Osler in the pits, and I think he's with Frank Gardner.
Certainly am with Frank Gardner, and boy, it's V8 territory at Mount Panorama. But Frank, your little BMW, it's running 16th. Did you ever imagine you'd be running in the top 20 at this stage of the race?
No, we sort of hoped by the end of the day we'd probably get into the top 10, but it's a bit early. There's been pace cars, there's been a whole heap of reasons why we're luckily up there in about 16th position. There's a lot of V8s in front of us, but there's also a few behind us.
What's your current schedule for the race, all going to plan? 3 fuel stops?
Well, the dear old weather up there has buggered the day as far as fuel stops go, but we could have done it on 1 fuel stop. But of course you run into driver's time, which is 3 hours 30 maximum. So we're going to come in, if this present set of conditions prevails, we will be out of tyres, so we must come in and put on some slicks because our wet tyres are starting to fall to bits as the track dries out. So we will be interchange and sit Paul Morris in for the next couple of hours. Hopefully the weather will stay a bit consistent and we can get a go at it.
Is it conceivable that these V8s keep falling off the track and the dramas, you may end up on the podium or the top 5 this afternoon? Can you see that as a realistic chance?
I also buy a ticket in the pools every week, and and also a scratchy. It's that type of day.
Okay, Frank, best of luck. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mark. Get him off. He's an old actor. Frank, of course, that's the reason they flew the Bimmer in from Europe. They're looking at a top 3 finish today, and the weather conditions will play into their hands. There's the Synovus Falcon. A few people laughed at Alan Moffat's car when it came to Bathurst. He is running the car around probably about 8 seconds off the pace and smiling at everyone, saying, don't worry about it. We're here to finish in the top 10 late in the day. Let me tell you, at the moment, car number 9 is in 8th spot and catching Greg Hansford as the sun shines through.
He's just passed Brock during the break and is doing 2:29s at the moment. We mentioned that the front of the field saw 31s and they were the quick times, but just check that list now and you'll see that Johnson's just turned a 2:27. Dickie Johnson doing 27s at the moment.
Well, Tony Longhurst is in the pit, so he has come in. He will hand over to Charlie O'Brien, fellow Queenslander, who will take the run of the car. Alan Jones remains in the blue number 30 car, and Mark Osler is on the scene.
Trackside here with the Benson and Hedges team. Very quick stop, boy. This is a competitive car. Tony's out. Charlie O'Brien getting strapped in. Conditions, the rain has stopped for Charlie's first few exploratory laps on the track, so he'll appreciate that. They're bolting on slicks, so the track well and truly dry. Quite a quick stop. I haven't got the stopwatches on it, but it looks fast. Car all complete, back off the jacks, back out. Very slick stop for Tony Longhurst and Charlie O'Brien.
And probably a good stop too, Mark, because all of these guys are going to be heading in. They'll be chewing out intermediates shortly because there is a distinct dry line. The 2 Coca-Cola cars are already in the pits, the Wayne Gardner car. He'll be handing over to Neil Crompton. That's the 4 car. You see that Mark Scaife, Jim Richards' number 2 car is back in. They're going in for slicks, and Richie's on the spot.
Actually, it's Andy here.
Okay.
Peter Brock has just left the pit enclosure at 100 miles an hour. Going past me at the moment is the number 7 Code Commodore. And the trail continues. The number 4 Code Commodore, Tony Longhurst, as you just saw, was in. One of the Winfield cars is down the end. It's number 2, and the Peter Jackson pit's ready to come in.
Looks like a pad change maybe even coming up here. Are we? For the Fred Gibson team, the number 2 car, Jim Richards sits in that.
Well, remember, that's the wheel that was damaged when he came in earlier with that deflated tyre. He clearly damaged the rim, bumped something. I'd say they've got some geometry problems there.
Maybe, but they were expecting to do a pad change at about this point.
They were talking about a steering arm problem earlier. They might be having a look
They're
at that
in behind the disc. That's not I don't, with respect, the pads are there forward of the disc, and he's in behind.
They've got a steering arm problem, I'd say, and that's the reason they're taking their time down there. Track is starting to dry out, so everyone's been in trying to change onto slicks. Alan Jones, in the meantime, has taken over the lead in the Blue Falcon car number 30. Longhurst into the pits. Charlie O'Brien takes over. Wayne Gardner's been in the pits, and the big charger has been Dick Johnson in car number 17, the Shell FAI Falcon.
Just have a look at that. Win Percy's just recorded a 2:26. And Andrew Badecki has a 26 against his name as well.
And that 2:26, of course, for Win Percy's now on slicks. And the reason he changed was because his last lap before he came in on the full wets was to 2:47 in the drying conditions.
Well, not only are wet weather tyres inappropriate, but they're also deteriorating as this track dries out.
Jim Richards.
They head off as we pick up one, and it looks like, is this the Terry Finnegan car? No, that's Cameron McConville in the Anderson Consulting Commodore number 39. So he's had a slip at the top of the mountain as
Jones is in the pits, and he's out of the car, is he?
Yes, he is. Doing a pit stop, and David Parsons, the dairy farmer from Tasmania, will step into the car. Doesn't do a lot of racing.
He drives the cows pretty well, and the cars.
He goes very, very well. Drove in the Sandown 500, and of course here at Mount Panorama. Let's go down to Andy. It looks like an orderly pit stop.
Yeah, it's not as quick as the guys would have imagined. Alan Jones actually had problems getting out of the car with the seatbelt, and Dave also had problems putting redoing them back up. That was the race leader that pitted. Alan Jones covered in sweat, probably half of its rain, but glad to be out, no doubt.
Thanks, Andy. Well, in the jumble of positions now, car number 05, which is Thomas Mazera. 015 is in there with a pit stop. Looks like Craig Lowndes, is it?
Yeah.
In the second Telecom car. What a marvellous young driver. Did very well, out-qualified them all at Sandown. As we pick up on 05. Johnson making a huge run at the field in car number 17. Car has been sharing with John Bow.
Yeah, he's in second position. He's had a fantastic run since the pace car went back in. He's got the right tyres on. They all will have before long. You could not race wets or intermediates on this track as it is at the moment. The slicks are the way to go, and the Bureau backing that up. The forecast has just been amended to unsettled for the rest of the day. Clearing and unsettled for the remainder of the day.
Well, who would have guessed with the qualifying times of 2:12s that the fastest lap time in the race so far today would have been set by Colin Bond in the second of the Winfield Commodores. That's car number 6 with a time of 2:26.3. But with drying conditions, those times are going to continue now to tumble.
Well, John Bow, car number 17, about to come into the pits. He has just taken over the lead when Alan Jones pitted, and he's getting ready to hand over to Dick Johnson. You can see him unbuckling, if you like. He's just taken the top belts off. And he's in on the approach to pit road at the moment. Bit of one-handed stuff.
I saw Mr. Bean do this.
Yes. And he also took his underpants off, as I recall, without disturbing his flame-proof suit.
Well, they've had a great ride from, they were back as far as 14th. So John Bow has given Dick Johnson every chance at this one. He comes in, race cam tells the story, and Mark Osler is there for the call. Mark?
Got the stopwatches on this one, Michael. John Bow already out, and Dick Johnson strapping himself in, as you'd expect. Full slicks going on for these dry weather conditions. Interesting thing with this Dick Johnson team, they have a dry brake filler system for the driver's drink bottle, similar to the way you'd refuel the car, so they can ram the drink juice in there pretty quickly. Johnson out in about 23 seconds. A very, very quick stop for the Shell team here. They're looking very strong.
Thank you very much. 17 rejoins in 6th position as Glenn Seaton comes in. And Andy Raymond is there for Paul Radisich to step in, Andy.
He certainly is the current World 2-litre champions. Jumping, I tell you what, the boys in the pits are earning their money today. I would hate to think how many pit stops they've been, but Paul Radisich is jumping in the car. Again, it's funny to note they're having problems with the seatbelts. Glenn Seaton helping the New Zealander in. The pit stop's been going now 22, 23 seconds, so about the same as Johnson. They're out.
Thanks, Andy. Well, all of those positional change. Here's the Morris Hager car. Alfred Hager. They were climbing up through the field. We'll hand over to Paul Morris. Car flown in especially for the race. And Larry Perkins, who was running second on the road to Dick Johnson, has now taken over the lead. Colin Bond in car number 6 runs in second. And can you believe it? The Alan Moffat Synovus Falcon is now up to 3rd.
That's going to upset the betting.
Well, he's done it all. He's laughed off people who said there was a technology void in the Moffat setup for this year. They're following the car at the moment.
Yeah.
Here's Dick Johnson. Well, who would have believed it? They had their big chance with Dick at the wheel in the top 10 run-off yesterday morning, clipped the wall going up the top, put him out of contention, finished up 10th spot on the grid. With John Bowe starting the race, they've been back to 14th, up to second spot, first in fact, as they went in and pitted, and now Dick's at the wheel, and he's got everything going for him as the track continues to dry out.
Well, he carries our Dunlop race cam. We won't worry Dick with chats at the moment. He's just settling into the car, seeing how it feels.
Warming up tyres. Wouldn't be Dickie thrilled that he decided to take the second stint in the car, given the conditions this morning, the drama. It's been a real wise choice for him. He's come out on a dry track with slicks, the thing he likes best, and it's going to be a happy decision for him, I'm sure, in the wash-up.
Andy, things don't look too good down there. They've been a long time working on the 2 car.
It certainly has. They've even gone as far as grabbing the red gaffer tape to tape up the front spoiler. They ripped that off. They ripped the front wheels off. They had a look in further than the brakes. One would assume it's the steering. Jim Richards is not happy. They've been in here quite a while now. A very unhappy day for Team Winfield Racing so far.
Well, unhappy in terms of the performance of the 2 car with the problems they've had, the rain, the clip on the wall. But I'll tell you what, don't take anything away from Anders Olofsson and Colin Bond in car number 6.
Who just turned a 2-minute 22, Mike. They're flying.
Well, Perkins leads the race. Colin Bond now in the number 6 Winfield car runs in second spot, and Andrew Madecki in the Alan Moffat Synovus Vitamins car running there in 3rd place, just clear of Tony Longhurst, Dick Johnson, Terry Finnegan, Alan Jones, Peter Brock, Greg Crick still in the top 10, and Wyn Percy rounds out the 10 with Wayne Gardner in 11th.
Keep in mind, though, the Moffat cars only had the 1 stop. They stayed out a long time on full wets.
He's going to try and stretch it in there to lap 41. So Johnson goes through chasing them as we check them out on the Shell race score. Perkins and Hansford lead in the Castrol Commodore. That's what they did last year. Colin Bond and Anders Olofsson run second in the Winfield Racing Commodore. And Jeff Allam and Andrew Madecki in the Synovus Vitamins Falcon EB in 3rd place. 4th is Longhurst and O'Brien. And 5th, Johnson and Bowe. 6th place is Finnegan's and Williams. A great run there in the Bobby McGee's Commodore. 7th spot, Jones and Parsons in the Peter Jackson Falcon. Then it's 8th, 05, Brock and Mazzera. 9th is Greg Crick and Greg Scott. Tony Scott, and then 10th is 7, Percy and Ingle. They round out the 10, and we'll be back in a moment. Thank you, Sandy Roberts, updating us as Greg Hansford, who's just been into the pits and back out again, a set of slicks and also a little more fuel. That has put Colin Bond into the lead in car number 6, the second of the Winfield Commodores. Madecki, how Alan Moffat has managed to get the number of laps out of the Synovus Vitamins car is an absolute bewilderment.
If the track stays dry, he's not going to rank as spectacularly as he does at the moment, though, because Madecki's doing 2:26s, which is sort of the natural pace for this kind of track condition. And I noticed that Johnson's just recorded a 2:16, so the fast boys are starting to fly as this track dries out.
Drama, car number 2. The Australian champion. Let's go down to Andy and find out what is the problem.
Yeah, it hasn't been a happy day for the number 2 car, Fredo. I just saw you speaking to Jim Richards. What did Jim say was the problem?
Look, after Mark hit the wall, it's been something in the front end somewhere in that rain, and like it's making a real graunchy noise, like something's grinding away. And it's too dangerous this sort of circuit to do that sort of thing, especially when you're running sort of 164th or something. So I put the car away and sort of in case something goes wrong with it further. But like you said, you turn left, it doesn't handle too bad. You turn right, it really scrapes really bad. So something's out of line in the front suspension somewhere.
Still car number 6 out there for you.
Yeah, she's in front too, it looks like. Yeah, it's a good one, Andy. Thank you.
Thanks, Andy. And to Freddie Gibson, 2 was in position 30. And regrettably, the car is behind the wall. In the meantime, Greg Hansford, car number 11, the Larry Perkins Castrol Commodore.
Smoke.
Heads up the hill. Right behind him is the PJ number 30 car of David Parsons, blowing a little smoke. I wouldn't like that. 35 is also in the pits at the moment. An orderly stop. That's the Wilson Nicholson Shaw Commodore. They're in for a change of drivers. Another one of the privateers running here in our GIO pit report. In the meantime, Bond continues to lead out on the racetrack in car number 6 and clear of Johnson and Longhurst. Great view, Andrew Madecki in the Synovus Vitamins car carrying our Dunlop race cam. Great view from the floor, shows you how busy the driver is actually in the car and how many gear changes.
Still doing 2 minutes 26, is still at least 10 seconds off the fast guys at the moment, and probably dropping back at that rate.
Okay, let's go down to Andy, who's with Alan Moffat, a familiar face on our broadcasts.
Certainly is. It feels a bit strange actually interviewing Alan Moffat. Usually we're in the suit and tie together. The Synovus car's having a great day.
Well, it is honking along. We're very pleased with that. You know, we build it for go, a little bit of show, but we're very pleased with Andrew. He's doing absolutely a superb job, and thanks also to Dick Johnson Racing for a fabulous engine. We put it in on Wednesday. It's been running all week, and it's got that feeling that it'll go all day. And also to Freddie Gibson Racing for helping us with some spare tires when we were in a jam a little earlier in the day.
Alan, of course, the weather has interrupted everything, but is everything going to plan as far as pit stops go?
Yeah, we're very happy, Andy. We got it to lap 32, which is the schedule to have 4 stops. We filled it up. Andrew was still refreshed, so he stayed in the car. We're on intermediates now, but we'd just like a little bit more rain for our Dunlops to cool off a bit.
Alan, you've been giving me plenty of Synovus during the week to keep me bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, but you've also given Andrew some.
Well, he's got it in his drink bottle. We got Synovus Sport on board as well with our with our drink bottle.
We couldn't let it get away without you giving them a plug. We wish you all the best.
Thank you, mate. Good on you.
As I suggested, at 2:26s, he might have the vitamins in the bottle, but he's 10 seconds off the pace and has now dropped back to 4th.
Yeah, he needs some slicks.
The fast laps are around 2 minutes 16, 2 minutes 17. Dickie Johnson's just recorded a 2:16. Tony Longhurst a 2:17. And if we look further down in the field, 2:17s against Bradley Jones and Glenn Seaton. So the major protagonists are starting to force their way back to the head of the field.
Certainly the most striking looking car here, the Synovus car. As you can see, that black paint job.
Yeah.
Coming down across the top of the mountain up on the Shimbrick Crick car.
With that wonderful contrasting green, it reminds me of the last bout of gastric reflux.
Give it a break. Carrying also sponsorship from Parramatta Raceway in Sydney. So a little bit of the Saturday night thunder flowing into the Synovus car for the weekend, and he's doing a great job, Andrew Madecki. And the car will be taken over a little later by Jeff Allen, one of the top runners in the British Championship. Oop, little tight there, but young Rodney
Here comes Larry.
Larry gives, or Hansford gives him a little blip of the lights. He stays wide, gives him racing room, tucks in behind as they go down the straight. So it's Hansford coming back, going after Bond. Just look at the car through this section, down through Caltex Chase. Gee, it sounds well.
4th place for Hansford now in the Synovus car. He's got Longhurst next on the list.
I tell you, it's got a completely different exhaust note to it to any other car that's here, and certainly to any other Falcon that's here. It's a Dick Johnson motor. Last year, remember, he ran with a 4-barrel.
That's right, the only carbureted car.
Yeah, and this year he sent the motor for re-speccing to Johnson, and they came up with a very, very strong power plant.
And a sweet sound. I wonder what he's done. Tuned the exhausts a little differently for the Ford fans at the top of the hill.
Back to the pits, Alan Jones, car 30, second of the Peter Jackson entries, and also with a problem there.
We saw that smoke before when he was going up the mountain. Clearly a problem, a mechanical problem.
Let's go down to Andy.
Yeah, there's plenty of smoke down here. I spoke to the team manager just before the Parsons-Jones entry came in. He wasn't real happy. He didn't tell me exactly what was wrong, but sort of gave me one of those looks as if to say, it's a biggie.
There's a fire.
Dave Parsons is in the car, very relaxed. They've turned the engine off.
It's a hot clutch,
Certainly,
very hot.
Certainly is. It's warming the old toes up that have got a bit cold here for the last few hours.
Now, they've got to get an extinguisher on that because it's burning right up under the fuel system. Yeah, I think they've extinguished it from below.
Now, David Parsons sits in the 30 car. I thought, as a lot of people thought, these two cars were bulletproof this weekend. We thought the same about the Mark Scaife Winfield Commodore. The car was running 8th on the racetrack. It's in there at the pits with a lot of work still to go, and we'll update that. There's David Parsons talking with the crew chief.
And not a happy little Vegemite at this stage. Well, that's a shame because Jonesy was doing very well early. He was certainly the fastest car on the track before the pace car came out the last time. He's developed some major clutch problem, and I would say that's the end of the day for the Peter Jackson Falcon number 30.
I don't think Parsons is prepared to concede that just yet.
No.
He's not moving.
Well, we'll find out a little later as soon as they complete their stop.
It's probably because the rubber of his racing shoes has melted to the pedals, Gary.
Andy Raymond's got Alan Jones with him.
Yeah, thanks very much, Gary. An oil leak of some type, Alan.
Yeah, Andy, we don't know what it is. It might be a union or something, and it's leaking from underneath. So hopefully if we can tighten it up, he'll get on his way. And the other good thing is I've had a misfire in top gear all my session, and I just said to Skippy, then have you still got the misfire? He said, no, it's going like an arrow. So we've fixed the misfire, and now we've got an oil leak.
We hope you can get back out there, buddy.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks very much, Andy. 2 AJs.
Not all bad news for Ford, though, because while Jonesy was having problems with the unions, Dickie Johnson's gone into the lead.
Yes, Dick Johnson has managed to pass Colin Bond in the number 6 Winfield car as the 30 car stays in the pit area. So Johnson, a Ford, back in front again. Colin Bond at the wheel of the 2 car. Car 46 is the leader of the 2 litre category, and being able to really stretch this out. In fact, I think they would have preferred a little more rain to close them up. This is the Paul Morris, Alfred Hager Diet Coke BMW that Frank Gardner was speaking about early. Just look at this one handle, running superbly down through the S's and towards the dipper. Paul Morris was going to run the Diet Coke Commodore. Looks like the 30 machine is being backed in here for some more work. Looks ominous here. They're going to park it in the garage, maybe work on it there, I'm not sure.
Parsons still in the car. He's reluctant to get out, but they're backing it away at this stage.
So the order after the pit stops and after Dick Johnson being able to run down Colin Bond, the order is Johnson, and here he is, Captain Flash of Queensland, the race leader in the Shell FAI Falcon. Second is Colin Bond. Third is Tony Longhurst. Fourth is Greg Hansford in the Castrol Commodore. And fifth is Peter Brock in the Telecom Mobile Net Commodore. So Dickie Boy leads the field, hauled in Colin Bond, who had a quite good lead, and has been able to run away from Colin at this stage as he heads along pit straight. And for the first time today, the entire pit straight is just about dry. So time to do some sprinting. Johnson's opened that up. There goes Johnson, heading up Holden Hill as we check out the top 20 for you in today's Tooheys 1000. Johnson and Bow lead from Bond and Olofsson in the Winfield Commodore. Third, Tony Longhurst, Charlie O'Brien in the Benson and Hedges Commodore. Fourth, Perkins and Greg Hansford, the Castrol Commodore. And fifth is 05 Brock and Nazira in the Telecom machine. Sixth is 7, Percy and Ingle, the Coke Commodore. Then it's Allam and Madecki in the Synovus Falcon. Gardner and Crompton are in 8th spot. 019, Jones and Craig Lowndes at the wheel are in 9th. And Seaton and Radicic in car number 1 are back to 10th. 11th spot, Crick and Scott, they've been running strong all day on the Pinnacle Motorsport Commodore. Next is Jones and Dunstan, the Ampol Max 3 car. Then dropping back through the field because of that pit stop, Jones and Parson, Finnegan and Williams. And in 15th spot, Reed and Ashby in the Lansvale Smash Repairs Commodore. 16th spot, Morrison Hager in the 2-litre Diet Coke BMW, followed by Baird and Riley, the second of the Diet Coke 2-litre cars, Brooklyn and Blanchard in the Benson and Hedges BMW. 19th is McLeod and Burton in the NZ Australia Commodore, and rounding out the top 20, Grice and Johnson in the second of the Shell machines.
Back with the Tooheys 1000 from Mount Panorama at Bathurst, the great race of 94. After 49 out of 161 laps, 2 hours, 22 minutes of racing, and who would have believed it? Laughing boy himself, Colin Bond in car number 6, the second of the Winfield Commodores, and out there hopes now riding on him today in partnership with Anders Olofsson.
He's a seasoned campaigner. Oh, Bond is distinguishable from Olofsson in the car. He wears that quite old-fashioned open face helmet with a little peak.
And he's 8 inches shorter.
And he's 8 inches shorter and black. The car's going well. It has just been nudged back into third by Tony Longhurst, who is doing 2.17s consistently. Bondi on 2.21s can't match that pace at this point. The fastest man is Dick Johnson in the lead on a 2.15. The pace is getting faster and faster as the track dries, as the race progresses. Dickie Johnson, the 8th different race leader.
Colin Bond, 52, lives at Hunters Hill in Sydney. In fact, former Bathurst winner, 1969. That's some time back. Wouldn't it be unbelievable if he could win it again in 94? Winner of Sandown, 71. Of course, tremendous rally driver, winner of 3 titles, 3 Australian titles there, and Touring Car Championship winner in 1975. As Doug Mulray said, a great campaigner and still got what it takes. You better believe it. Although I noticed there is just there was a little smoke from the rear of that car, and the pits are getting ready for this car to come in.
You could see from the details, though, why Fred Gibson chose him to drive this car. He's a man with an awful lot of experience, and that's what's necessary for a race like this.
Well, he and Gibbo were great rivals when Fred was driving.
Rally experience wouldn't have hurt in the appalling conditions of this morning either.
Look at this, will you? They don't want anybody to know what's going on. This is car 30 in the Peter Jackson pit. You saw them back it in there, or push it back in, with Parsons still at the wheel. They've erected these screens, or they're holding these screens all around the car, so nobody, not even our race cam, pole cam, or any kind of cam, can see what the devil they are doing and just what exactly the problem is and how they're fixing it. They don't want to give away any secrets.
Yeah, it's all a secret. You can also see the air blower at the front of the car there, blowing air into the radiator to keep the water cool.
Back with Colin Bond, the number 6 Winfield entry, keeping in mind that the number 2 car, the lead car, the car of Mark Skate and Jim Richards, has been pushed behind the pits. They had an awful lot of trouble with it. As we suggested, Colin Bond is now coming in. The pit guys are ready. We are standing by as well. This car running like a dream so far. I would suggest Colin Bond will be out of the car at this stage. There'll be a driver change, and Anders Olofsson will take over. We'll find out all about that as it happens. Mark Osler, he's on the spot.
Thank you very much, Wilco. Yes, car 6. Car currently running third. Comes into the pits. I've got the stopwatch on him, 10 seconds. And it doesn't look like Bondi here. He's going to do a double stint, staying in the car. They check the brakes, no change to the pads. New tyres, a fresh load of fuel, and out in 19 seconds. Boy, these guys are on the pace with the pit stops today.
Well, the Winfield team, of course, now only having the 1 car to worry about. Anders Olofsson looking anxiously on there as Colin Bond returns to the race.
In 7th position.
Well, that was quite a decision to leave Colin Bond in the car, but then, as we said, with a man of his experience and doing it so well at the moment, best decision to leave him there and let him get on with it for at least 1 more session.
Absolutely right, Wilco. The other interesting thing, he went into the pits in 3rd position. He spent 19 seconds stopped, and he rejoined in 7th. That gives you some idea of just how close things still are at the front of the field.
Well, speaking of pit action, I said that the Coke pit is getting ready for Wayne Gardner to come back in 7th position currently. If they're coming in for tyres and fuel only, it will be a quick stop, no driver change.
I believe it's Crompton in the car. They've been communicating after their radio died by clicking the mic on and off. 1 click for yes, apparently, and 2 clicks for no. So Morse code at school. Morse code. ... for the Crompton Gardner combination.
Here's the car, the Shell FAI car, number 18, that we saw in the sand trap earlier in all the schmozzle and the rain. Alan Grice at the wheel of this one, ripping across the top of the mountain and trying to make up for the territory they lost, because Grice was up running as high as 4th in the race in the early stages. Young Stephen Johnson will be looking forward to a stint behind the wheel himself in the car a little bit later on in his 1000 debut, because he's driven here previously in the 12-hour event with Dick Johnson, his father, and won their category, in fact, here last Easter. But this is a different ball game.
I think Junior Johnson's already been in that car, actually. I spoke to Alan Grice in the pits a short while ago, and he was saying how difficult conditions were over the top of the mountain.
Position 16, this car is running at the present time. They qualified very, very well. 30 car, the one that was behind the screens, rejoining the action. David Parsons there, as we said, they had an oil leak. They had what looked to be a small fire under the bonnet. No real harm done. They're satisfied. They've rectified the problem. Back to the action. There's the teammate car, number 1.
That's running in 8th place at the moment. Glenn Seaton and Paul Radisich.
Radisich at the wheel.
Distinctive dark black helmet there with the yellow flecks on it.
Neil Crompton at the wheel of the number 4 Coke car, our Qantas race cam. And Neil, things are settling down, a little more sanity applying now, I think.
Yeah, g'day, Wilco, is that you?
That's me.
How are you, buddy?
All right, pal, yourself?
Had better days?
Well, it's improving, I think, isn't it?
Well, we're still out here and the car is reasonably competitive, although we've got the wrong tyres on it at the moment, and it's sliding around all over the joint like it's on margarine.
Well, at least the car, Wayne and yourself have survived all that mayhem in the early laps.
Yes, that's correct. Sorry about the delay there.
That's all right. I understand you're busy.
Yeah, we survived. The car's still out here, and that's all thanks to the Tape College.
Niels, you're in 7th position and doing 2:18s, which is only 2 seconds slower than Dickie Johnson, who's leading the race. It can't be too badly put together.
No, it's dodgy under brakes a bit, Dougie. It's a bit how you're going at the bottom of the straight, and it doesn't turn real flash. But the biggest problem at the moment is this oversteer that you might be able to see. The thing's real, a real battle.
How long are you going to be able to stay out there on those tyres?
As long as we can, because we don't want to make another unscheduled stop. We've had 6-pack of those already.
Yeah.
And you're closing in on 6th place man there just in front of you, Colin Bond, Neil.
Yeah. Is that Bondi, is it? I wasn't sure whether it was Bondi or Anders.
No, Bondi stayed in the car for another stint.
Oh, well, the old bloke can teach me a few tricks around here then.
I don't know, you've got about 3 seconds a lap on him at the moment, so show us your style.
I'll have a lunge at it.
A lot of traffic coming up ahead of you, Neil. We'll let you go.
Yeah, that's the biggest problem here at the moment, which is what we predicted all week. I mean, look at this, just a wall of wombats. I wish I had a bread gun. I'd blow these mongrels all over the road.
All right, we'll let you go and do it.
Thanks, buddy.
The wonderful thing about Neil is he doesn't allow his natural aggression to intrude on his driving.
Let's go down to the pit area, because Mark Oastler's there and has been chasing up Glenn Seaton to find out just what the devil's going on with that Peter Jackson car.
I certainly have, Wilco. It does seem the Devils infiltrated the Peter Jackson team today. How is car 30, Glenn? If you know, what was the problem with it?
No, the 30 had no problem at all. It was just a matter of electing the right tyres at the right time. But, oh, sorry, number 1's fine, but 30 had a split oil line, so these things happen.
Now, were you able to fix the problem? Should you expecting the car to run reliably to the end?
Hopefully, that's the plan, is basically you come here hopefully to be run reliable all day, but little things happen. But so far, number 1's just circulating real fine. I'm really happy with it.
No problems with number 1, that's good news. Just tell me, there was a lot of talk earlier in the week about the closing speed between the fast V8s and the slower ones. How are the slower guys behaving themselves out there today?
Well, it's pretty good so far. I haven't had any problems at all, but it's part of this motor race, really. You just got to put up with those sort of things. That's probably the good part at the end of the day, winning the race. So you avoid them objects.
Let's hope you can kick the voodoo today, Glenn. Best of luck.
Thank you.
Glenn Seaton there with Mark Oastler and the second of the Peter Jackson cars. We were just talking about car 30. David Parsons is in position 32, and Glenn's car, the one that he's sharing with Paul Radisich, is in 8th position.
And it's just behind Neil Crompton, who's just behind Colin Bond. This is the dice for 6th and 7th. And just behind them, you'll catch a glimpse of him in a minute. Here's Paul Radisich at the wheel of Glenn Seaton's car.
quite a bunch battling for position on the track here as the circuit continues to dry out. The times continue to tumble. We're into the two. In fact, we've got a 2:15. Dick Johnson, the race leader, has done a 2:15.58.
He's been doing 2:15s for the last 3 or 4 laps. He's flying, Dick. Certainly has put his stamp on this race. He can maintain a second a lap gap, and he's going to be there at the end. He'll be there with the checkered flag waving in front of his windscreen.
Coming down towards Caltex Chase under the Tooheys Bridge, and there goes car 17 flying along. Colin Bond in the Winfield car 6. That's the 18 car with Alan Grice at the wheel. Neil Crompton just there in the background, looking for a line on the inside, can't find it.
Well, that's interesting. We were talking to Niels on Wheels before. I mentioned there was a 3-second a lap gap between Bondi and himself, and it seems that Bondi's rising to the challenge. He's now doing 2:18s consistently, but I think we just missed the passing manoeuvre. It looked like Niels was going underneath him there.
Clear track here for Dick Johnson. No wonder he's clocking up the quick times, because he hasn't got the traffic to contend with, not right at this moment anyway. And the way the fortunes have fluctuated here today, well, yesterday and today, is quite unbelievable. I mean, at every turn, not only has the weather changed, but events have changed on the track for the drivers, and none more so rather, than Dick Johnson in the 17 Shell Falcon.
Well, Johnson is the 8th different leader of this race, and when I was down in the pits about an hour ago, he was not a happy man. He was not happy at all about the fact the car would come into the pits, they put intermediates on it, and then it would rain, and he could see the race slipping away from him. Look at the way things have changed now.
To be fair, all the punters had the same problem. The lads weren't able to read this weather, and I guess to some extent aren't able to read it now. There are still grey clouds looming, although, as I mentioned before, the Bureau has amended the forecast. They say conditions are clearing and will remain clear but unsettled for the rest of the afternoon.
Well, clear head and some smart thinking and some clever driving from Dick Johnson here could really put his stamp on this race now. I mean, he's got the best of the conditions at the moment. He's out there, the car is in terrific order, and the track dry, the time's coming down, and he's got the lead, and he is opening up quite a gap at this stage of the race. Let's check the full field on our Shell race score. Johnson, Bow lead the Shell Falcon. Second position, Longhurst, O'Brien for Benson and Hedges. Then Perkins, Hansford, Castrol, Commodore, followed by Brock and Mazira for the Mobile Ned Commodore VP. Percy and Ingle in the first of the Coke cars hold 5th. Then Bond and Olofsson for Winfield, followed by Gardner Crompton. Second of the Coke cars. Position 8 is Seaton and Radicic for Peter Jackson. Then Jones and Lowndes for the Holden team in position 9. And in 10th, Crick and Scott. What a great job they're doing to fill out the top 10. Position number 11, Jones and Dunstan in the Commodore, then Finnegan and Williams, also another private entry doing very well here today. Allam and Miedeke, the Synovus entry in 13th spot. Reed and Ashby, privateers flying the flag there in 14th. Then the second, Grice and Johnson, Shell FAI Falcon in 15th position. Position 16, Morris and Hager, the first of the 2 leader cars, the Diet Coke BMW, followed by Trimble and Walden in the Commodore VP. Daily Planet entry in 17th. O'Brien Callahan, position 18, Rookland Blanchard, position 19, Palmer and Peters in position 20.
From position 21, it's the Baird Riley Diet Coke BMW. 22, K&N Murphy's Oryx Toyota. 23rd is the McCall Gazzard Commodore. 24th, McLeod Burton with their Commodore. 25th, Shembry and Crick with another Commodore. From 26th, Wilson and Nicholson. Commodore mounted once again. 27th, Doolman and Cotter with the BMW M3. 28th, Smurden and McConville with their Commodore. 29th, Lamont and Golson with theirs. And 30th, Cedars and Letcher with their Peugeot 405. From 31st position, the Taylor Bell Commodore. 32nd, car 30, the Jones Parsons Falcon, which has just returned to the pits. 33rd, Ayub and Conway with their Commodore. 34th, Russell and Gillen with their Commodore. And the Falcon of Wilmington and Barnes in 35th.
36th position, Scape and Richards, and you can see the little flashing car there means a broken vehicle. Dick Johnson is the race leader in the Tooheys 1000 for 94, and we'll be back with more of the action in just a moment. Things are just fine here at Mount Panorama. Dick Johnson leads the race after 57 of 161 laps, 2 hours 38 minutes. Things are fine here at Mount Panorama. Sun is shining. You would not believe the conditions that we had earlier in the day if you were now sitting there and watching this and hadn't known what went on before, as we take race cam in Dick Johnson's car. Looks like a relaxed Sunday afternoon drive for Dick. He's got the track pretty much to himself at the moment. He's managed to break free of the traffic for the present time, setting up some very fast lap times and consolidating his position here at the head of the field, with Tony Longhurst in the Benson and Hedges Commodore running in second place. Larry Perkins at this moment in the Castrol entry is in third, followed by Peter Brock, then Wyn Percy in the first of the Coke cars. Wayne Gardner in the second of the Coke cars is in sixth position. Then comes the Peter Jackson #1 car of Glenn Seaton, followed by Colin Bond in the #6 Winfield entry. Brad Jones in the Holden Racing Team entry in position 9, and Greg Crick and Tony Scott still hanging in there in 10th position in the Pinnacle entry car. They are doing a fantastic job for this team, having their first outing at Bathurst in this car. The team owned by Phil Richards and Dan Murphy, with sponsorship from Shoreline Resorts, and doing just an unbelievable job. They put in a good performance, if unspectacular, in the enduro race at Sandown a few weeks back. Came here pretty much unnoticed, just went through the qualifying very quietly, not spectacular. But today, hello, slow car. They're sneaking up on the inside. The car's going wide to avoid it. He's hugging the wall, trying to stay out of danger as the faster cars whip through.
Now this, Wilco, is the dice for 6th, 7th and 8th places. Neil Crompton at the wheel of car #4, Paul Radicic at the wheel of car #1, and Radicic is closing Crompton down all the time, getting closer and closer, in fact moving right up onto the tail now as they come across the top of the mountain.
And that's Bondi just behind them, behind that slower car. So Crompton did nail him, as we saw earlier, and now Radicic has done the same.
Yeah, Radicic on something of a charge early on the pit stops that they made when they changed to intermediates, and then it rained and they had to go back onto wet tyres again. Cost them a little bit of time.
Our viewers in New Zealand will be enjoying this. He's a bit of a national hero, Radicic. He's just won the 2-litre championship in Great Britain, has he not?
Well, no, he's had a good run in the British 2-litre series this year. He's the reigning FIA World 2-litre Cup winner, and in 2 weeks' time he goes to Donington Park to defend that title in the UK. But he's a Works Ford driver in the Mondeos, and he's just moved up another spot.
Well, big hello to all our viewers through Channel 2 New Zealand, and they'll be riding with the Radicic with their fingers crossed for the remainder of the race. But I tell you what, they're in with a terrific shot at their man, in partnership with Glenn Seaton, taking the title here today, although at the moment it's Dick Johnson who holds sway at the front of the field. We mentioned the improving weather. It continues to do so. The track bone dry now. Times continue to tumble. Reports from further west at Orange say bright and sunny conditions prevail there. It's looking good.
Dickie Johnson's just improved on his fastest time. He has got the time down to a 2:15.4133, the fastest lap of the race thus far.
Smiling Alan Jones.
I don't know what he's smiling about. Car 30 is still in the garage. They lifted the veil of secrecy earlier, the cone of silence. They got problems.
Yeah, now David Parsons is back out now, and I don't know whether or not it's been rectified. It's back there again, is it?
No, it's in there.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, it is back there. My apologies. And it looks like it's up on the jacks, and I don't think it's going to be going anywhere for quite a while this time.
It's got the jacks, all right. There's no doubt about that. There is the remaining hope for the Peter Jackson team, the Seaton car, car #1.
Well, Radicic and Seaton, having done a great job in that car throughout practice, one of the pre-race favourites, and there is the sister car still sitting in the pits.
Yeah, it's unusual to see a car with a fire blazing underneath it get back out and race effectively. I thought that might spell more trouble than they were letting on.
Now Radicic tries to find a way past the Shell car. That's the junior Johnson Allen Grice, number 18 in front of them. A slower car to make their way past as well as they come down towards the elbow.
Race cam under the GIO sign there, pulling out to take the 18 car. Young Stephen Johnson at the wheel of this one at the moment, getting his first taste of the big boys at play here on Mount Panorama. Car 30's about to go out again, in and out like a jack in the box, but they're not going to quit. And this is the Pinnacle entry. Tony Scott and Greg Crick, Tony Scott driving at the present time. Tremendous experience over I hate to think how many years now. They're in 10th position at the present time. Been maintaining a top 10 position now. Well, for the better part of the race, after the hectic early laps quieted down, they just snuck right in there. They made the right tyre choices at the right time. That was the most important thing to do here in the first hour and a half of the race today, without any doubt. And Greg Crick drove unbelievably well in the first stint, handed over to Tony Scott.
And still is. He's doing 2:17s, 2:18s consistently, which is right on the pace.
And just to give light to everything I said a couple of minutes ago, this is a spot of rain or two falling outside again.
Wilco, you gave us the all-clear weather forecast from here to Orange.
Hey,
Sunny.
it'll be right. It'll be right. This is just an aberration. It'll be gone in a few moments. Tony Scott wrestling the wheel there as they comes down. Yes, just missed that.
He's an optimist, as Winston Churchill said. There's no point being anything else.
Yes.
Got to be.
Tony Scott and the 24, the Pinnacle car.
Yep.
Very impressive, the team so far. For privateers, they've done an excellent job.
Car looks beautifully balanced. Would have to be doing those times. When you consider, you know, yesterday the boys were shooting out at around the 2:13, 2:12, 2:13 mark. Race pace, according to Dick Johnson, is 2:15. That's real quick times with racing tyres and a full tank of gas.
The Johnson Shell FAI Falcon looking very, very strong at this stage, as the boys have already mentioned. But it'd be very lonely without a quick chat from Dick. I know he doesn't want to do much talking today. He's in a winning spot. How goes it, young man?
Not too bad at all, Michael.
It's a better day than yesterday, then?
Oh, well, I'd rather have a bad day yesterday and a good one today, thank you.
OK, mate, you've got a good break over Tony Longhurst, and the car feels good?
The car feels great at the moment. The back tyres are a little bit soft, but other than that, the car is absolutely fantastic.
Anything to say to all your fans up there in Queensland?
Well, it's just damn good for a change to be in a car that's just going like a train. And to all the people up in Queensland, I just hope we can bring it home for you.
OK, Dickie, off you go. Thanks, mate.
Thanks, mate.
Dick Johnson, it's a terrible thing to interrupt them when they're trying to concentrate, but he's very generous of his time.
Are they bugs on his windscreen, or is that rain again? Give
I don't know. You've got Wilco-itis now. You're going to bring in the rain, but it's it's
bugs.
It's reasonably clear outside, down through the Firestone Dipper, working the way to Forest Elbow. And Dick looking for another win here at Mount Panorama. Would love to do it in an Aussie V8 Falcon.
Top 4 cars now, and that's Dick Johnson in this car, Charlie O'Brien in the Benson and Hedges Commodore that he's sharing with Tony Longhurst, Greg Hansford, the car that he's driving at the moment for Larry Perkins, the Castrol Commodore, and Thomas Mazera in 05 that he's sharing with Peter Brock. Those top 4 all now regularly doing the 2:16s and a little under.
I remember years ago, by this time, someone would be a lap up or 2 laps up on.
And we'd all be sitting here yawning.
Yes, and if you look down the number of laps completed, just so many of the guys in the top 10, 12 I think we've got. No,
first 9 are on 60.
First 9 are on the same lap. So it's a long way still to go, and a lot could happen. But Dick Johnson has a good break of about 23 seconds, 23.0878 seconds, in fact, over Tony Longhurst's number 25 car. And just back behind them is Greg Hansford and Larry Perkins' car. And in a lot of the publicity, people said, you know, it could come down to your co-driver. If you just put someone else in for the day rather than a full-on race car driver, you could lose the race, as Dick finds out here, coming into the inside, passing those couple of 2-litre cars. Well, check out the top 10 for you. Johnson and Bauer lead on lap 61. There's the gap to Tony Longhurst and Charlie O'Brien, 23.08 seconds. Then it's Perkins and Hansford in the Castrol Commodore in 3rd. Brock and Mazera, the Telecom Mobile 8 Commodore, in 4th. And Percy Ingle in the Coke Commodore run there in 5th. 6th, Seaton and Radicic. Still a lot of work to do. Gardner and Crompton run 7th. Bond and Olofsson in the Winfield Commodore run in 8th, followed by Jones and Lowndes in the 2nd Telecom car. And running out the 10, the Pinnacle Motorsport Commodore of Crick and Scott. Back here at Mount Panorama, Bathurst, the 1994 Tooheys 1000 continues. 62 of 161 laps completed, and we're 2 hours 51 and a titch into the event. Trevor Ashby, car number 3, the car he shares with Steve Reed, the Lansvale Smash Repairs car, running in 14th at the moment. Great privateers, always produce a very competitive car. You saw Mark Osler's feature piece earlier this morning detailing the the plight of a privateer against the pros. Well, the Ashby-Reed combination in the Lansvale Smash Repairs entry do just an excellent job. They have to handpick their races. They can't afford to do all of it. And, of course, they're running courtesy of Synovus Vitamins. A little bit of a breakdown on the current spec V8 Commodore, 1,300 kilogram weight engine, V8, of course, 5,000cc push rod, 2 valves per cylinder, electronic engine management and fuel injection, 7,500 RPM rev limiter, powers about 550 brake horsepower at 7,200 RPMs, 390 foot-pounds of torque at 5,000 RPMs, and a Hollinger 6-speed gearbox and rear-wheel drive. It'll give you an idea of the ventilated discs that they're running front and rear, and also the tyres to try and get maximum traction here. It is a very, very good package that the Commodores have, and so too the Fords this year. As you can see, with Trevor Ashby just exiting the chase, and David Parsons in the pits again. He's been out and in and out and in, and I think the 30 car has run its race. There's Alan Jones saying to Barry Seaton, Glenn Seaton's dad, who runs the Seaton racing team, exactly what the problem is. They know their race is done. Bad luck indeed. They still have the one car, Glenn and Paul Radisich, out there on the racetrack. Seaton's number one car with Radisich at the controls, now running 6th on the track at the moment. So Dick Johnson leads, Tony Longhurst in second. The Perkins Commodore, Greg Hansford at the wheel, followed then by Thomas Mazera in Peter Brock's 05 car, and then Russell Ingall and Wyn Percy in the first of the Coke Commodores. Car number 12 down the front straight. Bob Jones goes through.
Bob sharing this car with Troy Dunstan, currently racing in 11th position, and so they're right on the pace.
This is the Ampol Max 3 Commodore. Bob has run the entire, that's Troy at the wheel at the moment, but Bob, the owner of the car, has done the last 2 seasons of Shell Australian Touring Car competition, has received help from Ampol. We hope he gets a little more help from Ampol, because he's been the man up there giving them plenty of exposure during the last 2 years. A full-on privateer. Good that the company got behind a privateer. They probably had 42 approaches from all the pros to take their money.
Dick Johnson mentioned when we were speaking to him on race cam, Mike, that he had a slightly soft rear tyre, and maybe that's the reason that he's slowing down. He's done 2 laps now of 2:18s as opposed to 2:16s and under that he was doing earlier. I think we might see him come into the pits for a quick change shortly.
Well, he could afford to do it, Gary, with a 20.3 break over the second-placed car of Tony Longhurst, but you wouldn't want to do 4 or 5 more laps and have Longhurst sticking around your rear bumper. Just back to this car again, because we like to cover as many of the cars during our broadcast. Just mentioning Bob Jones, who had a tremendous fight for the Motorsport News Dunlop Cup that went to the best privateer in the championship series, went right down between the Lansvale car and Bob's at the final round of the Touring Car Championships at Oran Park. They're doing a great job here today, and Troy Dunstan driving up a storm. As we take the Qantas race cam. Paul Radisich of New Zealand.
Hello.
Paul, Mike Raymond, how are you?
How you doing, Mike? I'm well.
Now, you got rid of the Kiwi weather.
Mainly?
You've got rid of the Kiwi weather and the English weather. How's it feel on a dry track?
Yeah, mate, it's good. Glenn did the hard job by staying out in the wet conditions, but it's nice and dry now. It's just a little slippery in places, but she's okay.
Well, we have all of New Zealand watching us today through TV2, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of Kiwis out there hoping you can bring this baby home for first.
Let's hope so, mate. I think we're 6 at the moment, and we've just got to keep going. We've made a couple of unexpected stops, but who hasn't?
Well, you're up to 6 spots, so you're doing all right. I'll let you concentrate. Thanks for the chat.
Thanks, Mike.
Paul Radisich, wonderful young man and quite a driver.
In 6th position at the present time, and ahead of him up in the 3rd spot is the Castrol Commodore of Larry Perkins and Greg Hansford. Hansford at the wheel. That car is now the quickest on the racetrack today with a 2:15, and it looks like they're getting ready down at the B&H pit for their car to come in with Charlie O'Brien at the wheel. Tony Longhurst looks as though he's about ready to jump back in.
Well, not only is Bob doing a good job, here's Wing Cam, our Qantas Wing Cam, riding on the Wayne Gardner, Neil Crompton Coke Commodore. Neil Crompton driving, of course, coming down to tyre power turn. The exit to that corner, a little wiggle on the exit, cut across to the left here. And now the open spaces of Conrod Straight. The two, despite the problems, I'm quite amazed that this car has just been so competitive all day after Wayne Shunt in the warm-up this morning.
They have done a great job. Neil was a bit concerned about what sort of damage it might have done underneath, but talking to one of the mechanics, he was saying that it wasn't quite as bad as it looked, but they've been in the wars nonetheless.
He comes beneath the Bridgestone bridge, heading down to the left-hander at the end of Conrod Straight. Up into 7th spot, the number 4 car. And if the track stays dry, they'll make up time in the latter part of this race. I would think that Neil would have been extremely disappointed this morning. He's a very intense young man when it comes to his car racing. I thought that when he climbed out of the car and called the sacrosanct Mount Panorama course the low joint, because I think his boss had stuck it in the wall. But now maybe he's out there circulating and feels a part of it. Let's check it out with Racecam, Qantas Racecam. How goes it, Neil?
Not too bad, thank you, Mike. We've elected to try and keep the car out here, even though it's lapping quite slowly. Rather than drop any places, it's best to hang in till we run out of this load of gas, and then we'll come in.
Is it a handful?
You could say that.
Sure. You want to start with where it's a handful?
There's about 6.214 kilometres worth of handful around here at the moment.
So it's pretty physical stuff there today with the car and the shape it's in.
Oh, yeah, I mean, let's not overdo it. It's just very slippery to drive because the track's dried out nice and grippy. There's another type of tyre I'd like to have on at the moment because I reckon the car would actually be quite quick. But we're out here having a go, looking after the thing, and still doing, I guess, a half respectable time.
You certainly are. Thanks for the chat. Back to you later.
You're welcome. Have fun.
Tony Longhurst running second to Dick Johnson on the racetrack at the moment. Behind the wheel is Charlie O'Brien of Queensland, the co-driver. Here it comes. Mark Osler is there. Call the action, Mark.
Thank you, Michael. Yes, Charlie O'Brien, a great stint there in car 25. The car currently runs second. Tony was very busy just before the stop. I managed to catch him with those wet laps earlier on. They're very confident they can go through this with just one pad change, and indeed their fuel consumption figures have come well under control, so they're very confident of 4 fuel stops, and that really is a very competitive package for Mount Panorama today. Got the clocks on them, 24 seconds. They've checked the brake pads, no pad change this time, maybe next time. 28 seconds as Tony Longhurst gets back into the race. Keep an eye on that car.
I think we will. He's looked strong here all this weekend. Second, when he came in for his pit stop, has joined in 5th spot on the racetrack. Thanks to our spotters around the course, including Phil Harrison. Brutus keeping us up to date with all the movements in the pits, and a team up here by Alan Horsley, Greg Harlan, all the boys. We've got it wide from just about every angle. Cameron McConville in the Anderson Consulting Commodore, just trailing the 17 car of Dick Johnson. Dick's been so close after winning this race. And time out for a drop of Brizzy's best as he heads down Conrod Straight. Our Racecam view of this really does make it look easy, doesn't it? You'd think it was a Sunday drive. Then we show you the speed shot at Caltex Chase when they zip in there at 285 clicks. And somehow it looks like all concentration. But Johnson, like a member of the elite squad, as they call them, the old guard here at Bathurst, sure do make it look easy. A lot of young guys saying, when is Dick, Brocky,
when are they going to move over?
When are they going to move over? Why should they?
Never.
Look who's leading the race again. It's Dick Johnson and the Shell FAI Falcon. Perkins running in 2nd spot, his car, the Castrol car, and Brock Mazera running in 3rd. So we've got it all there, the Ford leading and 2 Commodores. The privateer, as he likes to call himself, Larry Perkins, and Peter Brock, the factory man, right behind him.
And they're getting ready for a change in the Brock pit. Mazera at the wheel at the moment, and Brock is standing by, geared up and about to get back into.
The gap between Johnson and Perkins at the moment around 30 seconds. That won't be enough for Johnson to take a pit stop and rejoin in the lead. Things still very close indeed at the head of the field.
Sure is. Let's check them out on the Shell race score. Johnson Bow lead, 28.8 seconds is the gap. Second is Perkins and Hansford, followed by Longhurst and O'Brien after that pit stop. Brock Mazira running in 4th, Percy and Ingle in 5th. The Brock car already has just gone to the pit area. Customary stop, as you can see there, as we show you. Seaton and Radisich run there in 6th, Gardner and Crompton in 7th, Bond and Olofsson in 8th, 9th, Jones and Lowndes, and 10th spot, Crick and Scott. Sandy, certainly a great prize to win, and with the way things are looking at the moment, Johnson, the number 17 car, headed for the pits, we believe. Did complain his lap times have just dropped a little bit, and great shot as he comes down to Caltex chase. Dab of the brakes, leading from Larry Perkins, that gap about the same, and then Win Percy, the first of the Diet, I keep saying that, the Coca-Cola cars, the Wayne Gardner team cars, up there into 3rd place. Then it's Longhurst, Seaton, Brock, Bond and Gardner as Dick Johnson comes on in car number 17 for a change of rubber.
And Wayne Gardner is now in that Coke car that came in for a pit stop whilst we were doing our update there. Neil Crompton out, Wayne Gardner back in the vehicle.
Mark Osler.
Thanks, Mike. Lead car bang on target. 70 laps. John Bow jumps in. Dick Johnson out. They're going to have a look at the front pads this time. They may not change them if they're healthy. Mechanic sticks his head under the guard. No, wheels go back on. The pad change will wait till later. These wet laps at the beginning of the race has really reduced the brake pad wear, giving these guys a lot of leeway in that respect and a lot of safety on their 4 stops for the fuel. A lot of cars coming in here, just about got run over. Car still in the pits, 27, 28 seconds, and off the jacks at 29 seconds. Very slick stop from the Shell team.
But Larry Perkins has gone through to take over the lead in the race, and car 17 will rejoin in 2nd position.
Coming up now on the Synovus Vitamins Falcon is Larry Perkins' car, number 11. Greg Hansford still at the wheel. Larry will step in for the sprint to the checker a little later. He works his way to the outside, so that 28-second gap, or 20.8 that they got out to, has now reversed itself. And the Synovus car also runs strongly looking down up to, I think, about 12th at the moment after the pit stop. And there's Greg Hansford carrying our Castrol race cam. Fine driver. There's a lot expected of Greg Hansford because Larry is a tough man, and he's engineering this car all the time at Mount Panorama, so seat time for the co-driver is minimal, and you have to be able to produce for Larry, and Greg does that. One of the most underrated race car drivers in Australia. And for the 2nd straight year with Larry, he's doing a fine job here today as he comes up once again on the Anderson Consulting Commodore V8.
And
the exit to tyre power, and they're on their way down Conroy.
And they're standing by in the Castrol pit, and looks like Perkins might be about to get back in the car for another stint.
Could be. Let's go down to Mark Osler. I think he's with the old fella.
You can call him the old fella. I'm not sure if he'd appreciate that. Mike just said you're an old fella, but you're doing a pretty good job for an old fella, Dick.
Oh, I don't know about that, mate. If the weather stays like this, I'll be really, really happy, old fella, I can tell you.
That car obviously working very well. The chassis looks great, plenty of power. It's really working well around Mount Panorama today.
Yeah, it is working very well, and you know, that's basically what we're here for, is to get a car with a good setup, and we've struck on the deal here, and I think if the weather hangs out for us and everything goes right, well, we're looking good.
What's the situation at the moment, Dick? You're fairly safe. 1 pad change and 4 fuel stops. That's the way you're going to go now?
Well, you know, I don't know exactly what the situation is now. I'll just have to converse with Ross and the boys just to see where we are. But I just hope that we can just keep going with regular pit stops and we'll be looking good.
Okay, mate, we've got Larry Perkins up the pit. Best of luck.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. And there's Larry. Come on, he said. Let's go down to Andy. He's there.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. As you can see, Larry Perkins, the team boss, jumping back into the Castrol Commodore. Greg Hansford, a nice little stint in the car. He jumped in on lap 32. It's now lap 71. No brake pad changes this time around. I've just spoken to the team manager. You can expect that at the next stop. That will be as water goes everywhere, including over my dial. But the next stop should be about lap 100, 105. Everything's going well for Team Castrol.
Thanks very much, Andy. And you could see that car number 11 has rejoined back in a couple of spots behind John Bow, who has gone through to take over the lead again in the 17 car, I believe. So that splash of water they got on the way out the pits would clean the screen enough for Larry. You can see it.
Would have cleaned his glasses as well. They miscued a bit.
Yeah, I think some came in the window as well. Got the commentator as well. Says our leader. We've had a swap. It went from Johnson, then to Greg Hansford to lead it. Then a pit stop for Johnson. Hand over to John Bauer. He's back in the lead, and Perkins is in there, still hammering away. 5th spot, so he's dropped a few spots, but he'll come back through the field. And how fortunate for Dick Johnson to have a driver of the calibre of John Bauer to be able to take over. He was extremely quick here this morning.
He might have dropped a couple of spots, Larry, in that changeover, but he didn't drop anything in time. In fact, his stop was 3 or 4 seconds quicker than the Dick Johnson stop.
Yeah, the only difference, of course, may well be the traffic now that Larry has to contend with in order to get back onto terms with Johnson.
The exit to tyre power turn. Johnny Bauer heads off down the Conrod.
One of the talking points this weekend has been the fact that Johnson and Bauer are such a strong driver pairing. Glenn Seaton, of course, has taken Paul Radisich on board to drive with him, making another very strong driver pairing. And the fact that a number of teams have chosen to have 2 number 1 drivers rather than a number 1 and a number 2 guy. Well,
Glenn handled for Paul Radisich and Alan Jones and David Parsons. And that was a strong combination, the 30 car. I mean, it looked bulletproof earlier today, but regrettably, it's behind the pit wall. Dunlop race cam. This will give you an idea of our rev range and the K's being pulled by the Shell FAI Falcon. The gear off to the right, dab of the brakes you see below that. It'll be interesting to follow this as he goes up Mountain Straight. Our revs come up. Keep in mind they're running on a 7,500 RPM. Up there looking for 223 before the right-hander. 241 momentarily, and now the turn into the right and the climb up the hill. 3rd gear. Change at 160 into 4th gear, and they'll come up now to the left-hander at the cutting. Interesting stuff, the diagnostic coming out of the number 17 car, Dick Johnson, John Bauer.
One interesting thing to notice, Mike. One interesting thing to notice, they might have a rev limiter at 7,500, but they they drive it right to the 7,500 every single change, every gear, right up to the top gear. He's using this full 7.5.
Back into the pit action. Here's Andy.
Yep, the practical politician, Alan Grice, has just jumped in. Junior Johnson has jumped out. He's had a 42-lap stint. Again, it's just they're putting on some new tyres. The driver change, of course, a full tank of gas. They'll again come in pretty much similar to what the Perkins crew will come in about lap 100, and that's when they'll do their brake pads.
Okay, wouldn't mind hearing from young Junior Johnson, young Stephen. He's done a fabulous job, his first Bathurst. Lansvale smash repair car goes through. An anxious moment here, the 17 car right in front of it. Car number 57.
The All-Trans car, they turn it into earth-moving equipment there. Was running 30th in the race, but that'll put a serious dent in his chances.
It'll be interesting to see whether they opt for a pace car, seeing it's in the sand trap. Anyone else that would run in behind it. They let one of the other cars sit in the Caltex Chase sand trap there for a while. I don't know if it's a good idea. We'll wait and see.
If they do bring the pace car out, it's going to tighten this whole thing up. It'll make a brand new race, but there's only seconds between the first 3 or 4 punters. I mean, a 10 or 15 second blanket over the first 3 or 4 cars at this late stage of the race. The pace car would certainly make an interesting change.
I'd say John Bauer would not even want the word used, pace or car.
Well, he's got around about 11 seconds on Tony Longhurst at the moment. That's the gap between first and second. And then Paul Radisich, not so far behind Longhurst either, just over a second back, in fact. Radisich due for a pit stop as well in the non-too-distant future. There is Radisich.
There goes Radisich up the hill, and I mentioned earlier that Stephen Johnson, I think, has done a wonderful job first up here in the Tourer at Bathurst, a V8 car. Andy's with him in the pits.
Mike, I've been trying to tell him for years that the kids are starting to knock off the old fellas. Stephen Johnson, you've just had 40 laps. How did it feel?
Yeah, fantastic. race went to plan for me anyway. My stint went to plan. I was dicing there for a while with Neil Crompton and a couple of the Winfield boys, and it was fantastic. It felt so good to be out there.
Mate, you're still in awe when you come up alongside a guy like Brock, or if they pass you, is it like, geez, am I really here?
Well, I passed Neil Crompton coming onto the straight here under brakes, and he gave me a big glare at the mirror, but he got me back about 20 laps later, so it was fantastic.
Steve, we'll let you sit back and relax.
Thanks very much, Andy.
Thanks, young fellas. Grice in position 13 at the moment. We follow Paul Radicic in the Glen Seaton PJ Falcon down the front straight, and it's starting to tighten up.
Absolutely. Look at that time. Bowie certainly settled into the car pretty quickly. He's got a 2:15.3, which is the fastest lap of the race so far. He's flying.
But if you looked at what's developing behind, as Paul Radicic comes up, and the Tony Longhurst car is just in front.
Now Longhurst running in second, Radicic in third, and Glen Seaton's pit crew are going to have to wait for another lap, because Radicic is going to continue and perhaps just try and take that second place away for just a lap before coming in and handing back over to Glen Seaton.
You mentioned earlier about having equal #1 drivers. What a bonus to have Paul Radicic, who does so well in the British 2-litre Championship Series, driving the Ford Mondeo, and he's wrapped in the V8 that he's running here this weekend. So he'd like to bring this one home, I'm sure, and closing all the time on the Tony Longhurst Commodore. So if you're a Ford supporter, don't go away. This man's on the move, and if this pace car comes out to remove the car out of the sand trap, could be on for young and old.
He seems to have his measure. He looks like he's biding his time, waiting for the moment.
Well, he's done the fastest lap so far at 2:14.8. That's Radicic in car #1.
You can begin to see why he doesn't want to bring the car in at the moment and hand over to Seaton.
No, absolutely no way. And Hamilton Surveillance, who have been doing the radar times on Conrod Straight, will give you some of those shortly. You see Dick Johnson halfway down the straight was doing a 2:73. Brock did a 2:77. #1, Paul Radicic at 2:75. And car number 15 at 2:74, but there's nothing between them. They're all within 2:73 to 2:77, but the fastest car in the straight line at Bathurst today is the 05 car.
Peter Brock, Peter Perfect.
Coming up on the Trevor Ashby, Steve Reed Lansvale Smash Repairs car, the exit to Tarpow turn. Getting set for the draft now for second spot. Paul Radicic sits in behind the Longhurst car. They work to the outside of the Lansvale Smash Repairs car. Bit of traffic congestion here. Oh, he's not going to go between them. I thought he was for a moment, but it's going to be tight as they run downhill. Radicic comes down the inside of Longhurst, just sits there as they make the right-hand kick. Now the left-hander at Caltex Chase. Real race going here for second spot in the Tooheys 1000. We have blue sky and sunshine over Mount Panorama. See how strong these two are under brakes.
Ooh, right on him.
Closed up there. The exit beneath the Tooheys Bridge. Pit straight, spectators off to the right. Going past the Technophone Mercedes 190.
He's waiting for his moment. He's got the measure of Longhurst.
And there's Glen Seaton waiting for the pit stop. Tony looks in the mirror. He's got the lights on. And Radicic trails as they head up Holden Hill again. Will now make a move. Here they come on the inside to take over second spot. So Paul Radicic of New Zealand, for our Kiwi viewers today through TV2 in New Zealand, hope you're enjoying the great race coverage. And Paul Radicic now takes the #1 PJ Falcon up into second spot.
And the good news is they're going to attempt to move that car in the sand without bringing the pace car out. So it's not going to affect the race. We've had enough slow periods thus far today. It'll be good to see the boys pounding while they get that thing out of the dirt.
Coming through, headed to Skyline, Radicic and Tony Longhurst. But keeping in mind, Tony might get second back pretty quickly because Radicic has a pit stop pending and Glen Seaton to take over the car.
What a dice.
I hope Paul hasn't got carried away with this, because Alan Horsley's reminded me Seaton has been standing in pit lane for 3 laps, geared up and ready to go. And there's the crew saying, come on, don't run it out of gas. Glenn's ready. Still a long way to go in this race. And Johnson still leading. Radicic into second. Longhurst is 1 spot back behind him. Then it's Perkins, Brock, Percy, Bond, Gardner and Brad Jones. Then Greg Crick in the Pinnacle Motorsport Commodore VP. Andrew Madecki has got Alan Moffat's car. Once again up to 11th spot, just 1 away from the top 10 as he trails Crick. And here comes Radicic into the pits. That gives second back clear to Tony Longhurst. And a driver change for car number 1 as they head down to the pit lane. Our boys are there to cover the action for you. Down to you, Mark.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, Paul Radicic comes firing into pit lane. Now, Glenn Seaton swapping drink bottles with Paul at the moment. Looks like Paul's going to do a double stint. Yeah, he plugs in a new bottle, so Radicic really on fire. Now, what are they doing? They are doing a front pad change. They've got the spreaders in there, new pads going in, old ones out. Very busy pit activity down the Peter Jackson stop, and it's looking pretty slick. They're changing pads on all 4 wheels. So brake pad wear and consumption going up as the track continues to dry. It's a hot pace here. Radicic calling to Glenn, they're comparing notes, making sure everything's okay. But gee, this car's sounding sweet. Beautifully engineered, no problems at this stage.
Mark,
pad change still in progress.
Mark, that must have been a late decision to leave Paul in the car, because Glenn already was helmeted up and they would have been talking to him in the car before.
Well, the reason why they held Radicic out on the track, because that car was stuck in the sand, they were hoping for a pace car lap before they brought him in. But the pace car thing hasn't happened, unfortunately, so they're back in the race. Radicic leaps out 53 seconds, can you believe it, for full refuel and 4 brake pads. Unbelievable.
It certainly is, Mark. And car number 1, with Paul Radicic still at the wheel, rejoins the race in 7th position. Our race leader, no doubt about who he is, as we take the Shell race score. It's the Shell FAI Falcon EB of Dick Johnson and John Bower. Second, Longhurst and O'Brien. Third, Seaton and Radicic. Fourth, Perkins and Hansford. And fifth, 05, Brock and Mazira. Sixth, next, Gardner and Crompton in the second co-Commodore. Jones and Lowndes in the Telecom Mobile Net Commodore in 9th. And rounding out the 10, it's Greg Crick in the Pinnacle Motorsport Commodore. Back here at Mount Panorama, lap 78 of 161 with 3 hours 27 into the great race. And Tony Longhurst following the Anderson Consulting car up the hill, and right behind him is Larry Perkins storming after him. So it's closing up again at the front of the field. Dick Johnson continues to lead. John Bower in the car at the moment. Longhurst in second. And the pace car, by the look of it, is going to come out onto the racetrack.
Yeah,
I've had some concern about that car parked in the blessed sand trap up there, and they tried to get the guys to dig it out, and if that wasn't more dangerous than the pace car for 2 laps.
Well, the guys that were trying to dig it out were in a very dangerous position themselves, and they were yelling for the pace car, and finally it's come out, and it's the right idea.
Well, they should only need the pace car out for 2 laps at the very most, and they can jerk that thing, sledge his car out of the sand trap. The last thing you want to happen is a car to arrive here with a brake failure and go straight ahead and run up the back of that car.
Especially with 3 or 4 blokes working there trying to dig it out.
So I think Tim Shankin, who's on the ball with all of this, has finally decided to bring out the pace car, and that, of course, I think will put a little bit more pressure onto Tony Longhurst, who's tried to fend off Larry. Look at Lightning Larry coming. He's got a sniff of this. So Longhurst, Larry passes the Anderson Consulting Commodore as they zip down into Caltex Chase. I tell you, who'll be filthy about this will be Seaton, who was banking on the pace car coming out earlier. But he left Paul Radicic in the car. They effected that brake pad change, but if it does close the field up, it means Seaton will be a little closer to the leaders. The pace car will be looking at picking up the race leader, John Bower, as they head up Mountain Straight. You'll be able to see the view coming up here now of the car on the sand trap from race cam, and there it is. They head on up the hill yet again, and we'll pick up the pace car shortly, probably looking for Johnson to drop in behind it. how quickly has Larry gathered in Tony Longhurst. He's on a charge as he comes up on the inside to Repco corner. Zips under Longhurst. Now moves up to second in the race. Has some traffic to contend with as he works his way up Motorcraft Hill to BP Cutting. So Larry now back in the car. It's almost a repeat of last year, and going back after the leader, there's the Ashby Reed Commodore in for a pit stop as we take a GAO stop in the pits. Checking under the hood, that's not a good sign.
No. Yeah, the old Larry, I mean, last year he took pole position, if my memory serves me well. Normally his plan is to develop his car, set his car up for the race rather than for the show pony part of the proceedings, but he's back to form today. He's flying, he's in second position, the car's beautifully balanced. He's certainly setting the Castrol sponsors alight. They'll be thrilled with his performance. This is the second year in a row he's done this, carved his way through the field, put his stamp on the race.
Well, the pace car came along pit lane, was bound to go out and then stop, and I think the status quo remains. Well, it does at the moment.
I know your concerns about the car and the sand were all safety-based, Mike, but if the pace car does come out, it won't hurt the race, because there's about 5 cars within half a lap of each other, and it'll put them all bumper to bumper.
There it is.
Well, you're right, obviously, Doug, and Perkins will be nice and unhappy because he had an 8-second lead on Brock. That's going to dissipate, but even unhappy is going to be Dick Johnson, who's going to have Perkins on his bumper. Now we're on lap 80, half race distance. The pace car comes out, so that give them an opportunity to remove that car from the sand trap in turn number 1. That should only take them, I would think, a lap to get that out, and will give them an opportunity for the field to close up again. So the race, I guess, comes alive. Not that it wasn't with Larry Perkins over everyone.
I noticed that all these cars in the top positions are doing around the 2:17 mark at the moment, which is back from the 15s of half an hour ago. The one exception is the Longhurst car. He's been doing 2:19s the last couple of laps. I wonder if his tyres are going off, and if so, I wonder if he'll take advantage of this pace car situation to come in and get some fresh rubber.
Could easily do, because they're looking at the Synovus Vitamins car. Doing a good stop down there. The Synovus Vitamins, Black & Decker and Parramatta Raceway. 9 was in 11th spot when it came in, so they're still fighting. Larry, can you hear me?
Oh, loud and clear.
Now, what's the pace car going to do? Put you right up on the tail of Dick Johnson for the restart.
I don't mind that at all, actually.
A stranger would say that. That's going to put Brocky up behind you fairly close as well, and Longhurst, so we've got a real race going again at half distance.
Well, I don't mind Longhurst and Brock behind me either, to be honest.
As long as they stay behind you.
Oh, yeah, well, up to this point in time, I've been very happy with the pace of the car, and there's been an awful lot of cars behind us, so let's hope we can continue.
Larry, this has been a fabulous race. The race that we saw in the wet was just dynamite. I don't think anyone's seen a Bathurst 1000 like that previously, but it must be a lot easier on you as a driver to face a bit of dry weather racing.
Well, I thoroughly enjoyed that first 15 laps when I had to catch up and take the lead, and someone asked me about it. And I said, really, in Europe for 10 years I had to drive like that, and that's the difference, and I'm very pleased to take the lead in such treacherous conditions.
Larry, how's the car feeling, mate?
Well, look, it's a Commodore, isn't it? It's
Go away, will you?
It's absolutely beautiful. What can I say?
Yeah, I'm waiting for you to drop a Castrol plug-in.
Well, yeah, we all know about the Castrol. Don't have to even mention that. It's just going along so smoothly. And feel those tyres. Look at that, not a murmur in the wheel.
That'd be Dunlops, would they?
Gotta be Dunlops.
Larry, goodbye.
Goodbye, mate.
Larry Perkins there giving us a race cam chat. They're under the yellow as we take the Shell race score. Johnson and Bow lead, but I tell you what, Perkins is on his bumper for the restart. Longhurst and O'Brien run in 3rd spot. Brock and Mazzera in 4th. Percy and Ingle are in 5th spot. 6th is Gardner and Crompton. 7th, Bond and Olofsson. Jones and Lowndes in 8th. Seaton and Radisich in 9. And rounding out the 10, Crick and Scott.
Madeki in the Synovus Vitamins car. Then position 12, Grice and Johnson in the second Shell FAI car. 13th is Finnegan and Williams, the Bobby McGee's Commodore. Position 14, Jones and Dunstan for Ampol Max 3. 15th, Trimble and Walden, the Daily Planet entry. 16th is Morrison Hager, the first of the 2-litre cars, the Diet Coke BMW. Then Ashby and Reed, the Privateers, in 17th spot. Palmer and Peters, the Palmer Promotions Commodore, in 18th. And back to the 2-litre cars in 19th spot is Rooklyn and Blanchard for Benson and Hedges, followed in position 20 by Baird and Riley for Diet Coke BMW. 21st position, O'Brien and Callahan for Everlast Batteries Commodore. Position 22, McCall and Gazard. Position 23, Kay and Murphy in the Carina. Position 24, Smurden and McConville. And in position 25, McLeod and Burton for NZ Australia. 26th position, Duhlman and Cotter, former class winners here in the 2-litre category. Position 27, Lamont and Golson in the Canberra Speed Shop Commodore. Position 28, Shembry and Crick in the Betaglow Commodore. Position 29, Taylor and Bell. And position 30, Wilson and Nicholson. Position 31, Russell and Gillen for Union Steel. Position 32, Ayub and Conway in the Group Motorsports car. Position 33, Cedars and Letcher in the Peugeot 405. Position 34, McKay and Miller. Position 35 is the 30 Peter Jackson car of Jones and Parsons. Position 36, Wilmington and Barnes. They've completed 45 laps. Then we get to some broken cars. In position 37, Ward and Ellery. 38, Scape and Richards. 39, Hill and Rogers. And position 40, Fay and Cribben. Position 41, Hardman and Full in the Hyundai Say Hi. Position 42, Yulden and Steniken. Position 43, Waldock and Preston. Position 44, back to the 2-litre category, a broken car again, Matthews and Martin. And position 45, Reed and Price, also out of the business.
Mount Panorama Bathurst, the Mazda MX-6 pace car that's had plenty of use this weekend. Lap 81 of 161, 3 hours 39 minutes into the race. Cleanest car out there on the racetrack is that beaut-looking Mazda MX-6. But the field under or behind it now as they tried to remove the car out of the sand trap, and we have Glenn Seaton in the pits, and he doesn't look all that happy. Mark Osler?
He wouldn't be a happy boy at the moment, Michael. When Paul Radisich just went out to commence his last driving stint, the car developed a misfire. They brought it in and tried to fix it. No good. Glenn's come back in again. Now they're attempting to change the spark plugs on the engine to see if they can find the source of the misfire. Of course, the pace car just passed us, so Glenn has dropped a lap. A real shame for the team on lap 82.
How secretive is the Peter Jackson team down there, Mark? When they had the 30 car up, they had skirts around it. These guys must be very warm with the hood almost resting on their melons. Well, they don't let a camera in.
Yeah, well, I think the practice has developed over the years that team managers from other teams get home and watch the full 10-hour Channel 7 telecast with their video recorders, see if they can pick up any details under other guys' chassis and under the engines. That's about the only chance they get to look at them. So with this level of competition, I guess the more secretive they can be, the better.
Mark, the general public's led to believe that these cars are pretty much of a muchness, that the technology is universal, but clearly that isn't true. I mean, they wouldn't do this cone of silence thing if all the cars were the same.
No, very high technology. Some people have slammed the V8s as being low tech. The only thing I guess you could say is low tech is the valve. They have a 2-valve per cylinder pushrod engine. Beyond that, these things are like space shuttles. The technology in these cars is state of the art.
What is it we might see if they actually stood aside? I mean, would it be fuel injection variations? I know 8 dead spark plugs at the moment in the Seaton car, but I mean, would we see different fuel rails, different injection configuration? What sort of thing would they have fiddled with that makes this car different, say, to the Dick Johnson car?
All those sort of details, Doug. I'm very close to the paranoia of some of these team managers. And it's just a certain way they go about things, even, as you say, to the smallest detail is where they run fuel rails or their master cylinder arrangements, the way they've got their exhausts arranged. It's a very high-tech industry, and they don't want to give one of their secrets away. I've got Glenn Seaton here with me now. Glenn, you went out there just for one lap. Obviously, you haven't been able to cure this misfire.
No, it's got a bit of a miss there somewhere, but I don't know what it is. We just changed it to spark plugs now just to see if that fixes the problem, and we'll go from there.
No hint of this drama any time during the week? This is the first time you had a problem, I think, since Wednesday.
Well, exactly right. We haven't had a hiccup all week, and this is what happens at this race. You don't have a hiccup all week, and then you have problems through the race.
You talk about shaking this voodoo. I know after Sandown you said, well, Sandown was a great learning experience for us because we had problems with the cars, but that's enabled us to get on top of all that. This must be a great disappointment for you.
Yeah, it is for sure. It's a big disappointment because we've been so competitive all week, and I really thought we could do very well here, and these sort of things really are disappointing, but that's part of motor racing, and you really just got to take it on the chin.
Had a very successful year last year, and indeed in the Touring Car Championship, still finished second. We really hope one day you can salvage a win up here, Glenn. All is not lost, though. It's only halfway through the race. You can still get back out on the track and get a decent result, I guess, but the disappointment must be overwhelming.
Yeah, it is really. We're probably very lucky that we're in here at the moment with the pace car out, and that has saved a bit of time, but it's going to be difficult to try and make up that time now.
Looking at that weather coming in from the west, anything could happen, mate. Best of luck. Thanks, Glenn.
Thank you, Mark Osler and Glenn Seaton. Car number 57 sits there. I'm not quite sure if they're going to detonate it or remove it, but they've got a couple of vehicles trying to wedge it out of the sand or hook it up. I think the trouble is once they get in, they're going to get into the sand as well. According to Noel Brady, my producer,
confirmation.
They've bogged the tow truck trying to pull it out. So goodness me.
Now they've got a tow truck to pull out the tow truck to pull out the car.
And the crowd are giving them a nice razz as well. As they go across the line. No doubt who's leading this. The driver behind the wheel is John Bauer, car number 18. The owner of the car and the team is Dick Johnson. And as we take one of our mountain memories, the year 1980. The tow truck on lap 84 of 161 at 3 hours 47:20 into the race has finally pulled out the Darrell Dixon, George Parkinson Peugeot 405. But the pace car would have had to come out anyway, because just on the slow lap behind the pace car, we have one car. The driver's lost control and slammed into the wall on the exit to Repco. And that, of course, is the Union Steel Roadshill Express car of Wayne Russell and Bernard Gillen of New Zealand. So if they've got a spare tow truck, they should have it up there pretty smartly. John Bauer continues to lead this race. It's been set at a frantic pace. But, JB, you wouldn't really appreciate this time behind the pace car, would you?
Well, I know it has to happen, Mike, but it doesn't make you that happy because you work hard all day to get a bit of a lead, and then it just takes it away from you.
Yeah.
I guess that's life in the fast lane, isn't it?
Well, 10 years ago or so, John, they used to bring the trucks out onto the track and load them while the race continued. I think you'd rather have it better this way, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I think this is probably the better of two evils, isn't it?
Listen, mate, you had a fantastic sprint off the line. I mean, that was just a dynamic drive. You'd appreciate a bit of dry track for a change, though, wouldn't you?
Well, it really is frightening in the wet, because you get behind a car, any sort of car, and you can't, you just can't see. You can't see past the end of the bonnet. I mean, it really, I'm no hero, and I tell you what, I lifted my foot a few times when I probably shouldn't have done.
Yes, we couldn't understand. I mean, there was Perkins and Brock and Scaife and Jones, and they were all hammer and tongs at it, and it was just unbelievable. And the vision couldn't have been that good back at one off the leader, and they were just at it, though it was a shell sprint race.
Well, Dick and I spoke about this before the race, and, you know, I think the old adage, hasten slowly, is a reasonable sort of thing to apply in this sort of conditions, because once I could get my vision again, you know, and I could see the road, well, then I pressed on a bit, and, you know, it's sort of worked out right. The car hasn't got any marks on it, so, you know, you can get a bit carried away. It's 161 laps, not 10.
No, that's true. Well, listen, mate, you for the first time joining us live all across Tasmania today, so you've got a lot of people pumping home for you.
I hope so, Michael.
We'll send them a call.
Well, I mean, I'd like to say good day to my kids. James, Alex and Nicky, or James, Nicky and Alex, I hope they're watching. They're probably not. They're not that interested, but
no.
If I can win this, they'll be happy, because I told them I'd buy them a new computer.
Oh. Take one out of the shell car on the way out.
Yeah, probably.
Listen, JB, have a good race. I know you got Larry with the fog moving over. He's about 4 back behind you, and I think he's itching for a real race.
Well, yeah, it's a long way to go yet, Mike, though, isn't it? You know, it's you've got to keep the car in one piece and try and drive with your head, not your right foot.
Well, you're the sensible race car driver. Good luck for the remainder of today.
Good on you, mate. Thanks.
Johnny Bow, one of the really nice guys, as we go back into the pits. And that's under the hood of the number 1 car, and they're back in. Obviously, they can't fix the problem. He came out. We thought the pace car would come in until the Russell Commodore went into the wall. So they've only completed 1 lap, and they're back in again.
Which sees Glenn, what, 3 laps down now?
Yeah.
Very disconsolate look on the face of Glenn Seaton as well, as they continue to work there without any success.
I think as the Mazda MX-6 comes up, we'll have a look at what happened to the Russell car.
Holy smoke.
Gee whiz.
I see it says Newcastle across the top of the screen. I think he was headed back there.
Yeah, well, they've had very strong support up in the Newcastle area, and I know Prima Network have been very supportive of Wayne Russell. There's only a youngster getting into touring car racing, but he's the car is quite a mess up there, and they need to pull that out as the Ashby-Reed Lansvale Smash Repairs Commodore comes in. They've been having some problems down there. That's probably about its third visit to the pits. So whether or not they also have an electrical problem, we're not quite sure. Mark Osler will bring us up to date, or Richard in the pit area, but that doesn't look good for them. They were running strongly just outside the top 10 for most of the early part of the race, probably up until the halfway distance. I think they were settled at 14th. But they're a little fortunate in the pace car. They probably get 4.5 minutes or maybe 5 minutes out of a lap to do a little bit more. In the meantime, that must be the loneliest wait of all time. You can have pole and you can lead this race, but when it comes round to late in the day, the whole ambition of coming to Mount Panorama is to be up on the Bathurst balcony.
Again, it just underlines how dramatically things and how quickly things can change in this race. It's not that many minutes ago that we were lauding the performance of Paul Radisich before he came in for the changeover to Glenn Seaton, when he set the fastest time in the race so far with a lap time of 2:14.8. That still stands as the fastest time. And there's Glenn Seaton sitting disconsolately in the pits.
He's just up at the end of... No, he's parking it.
Yeah.
They've driven it up the pit straight, but they've turned left, and it's going out the back, I'd say, for the remainder of the day.
Yep, Peter Jackson team 30 and 1 cars are now behind the pit wall.
And Mark Osler down on pit lane is with the Lansvale Smash Repairs car.
I certainly am, Wilco. Steve Reed in the car. You're running very strongly in the opening parts of that race, but you've had a few mechanical problems since you've been able to trace it. What is it?
The first one, Mark, I just left all the pumps and everything going while we were going slow, and it drained the battery, so we had to make a battery change. And then now we've got this inherent misfire, and we don't know where it is. It seems to be really bad across the top of the mountain, but coming down and up here, it's not too bad. So we've changed a couple of things. We'll change a couple more things now. Bit of a bummer, but that's motorsport, isn't it?
Speaking about bummers, Glenn Seaton's just got the same thing, so it doesn't seem to matter whether you're a privateer or a professional out here today.
If you can find out what it is off him, can you please tell me?
Sure, Steve. Bad luck. I hope you can complete the race.
Thanks, Mark.
Yeah, they're good guys. Steve Reed, Trevor Ashby, car number 3, Lansvale Smash Repairs, was in position 24 when they came in under the yard. Looks like the Wayne Russell car has now been picked up. And Wayne Russell and Bernard Gillen, as I said, from New Zealand. Here's the Komatsu car that had difficulty earlier today. They've found the time to take it back to the pits. That was the Brett Peters, Kevin Waldock shared machine.
So it won't be long before we get the pace car off and the race back underway. And when we do, we will still have 8 cars on the front running lap for the second half of the race.
Interesting that they mentioned the battery change and then the subsequent misfire there. One of these engine management system foibles, really. They're very sensitive to current fluctuations.
Yep.
If you jump start a contemporary car, you can often blow out the computer that runs the whole engine management system, and this is a very expensive lesson a lot of people have learned recently. In the average Australian car, I think a car computer and engine management system is worth about $600, $700, $800. In a Euro, in a Mercedes or a Jaguar or something, it can cost you as much as $2,500, $3,000.
One of the Diet Coke cars here has just stopped dead in the middle of the circuit.
No,
it's not. No, my apologies. I thought it was just from the colour configuration. Car number 8, Hardman and Full. It's the High Hyundai.
Well, they were making their world debut, if you like, here today, Hyundai. And the car has been running reliably throughout the race. Was in 41st position. They didn't expect to finish anywhere near the top 10. But the car is stalled, and very quickly the tow truck is going to take and pull it off the racetrack, which means that we'll probably get, this could be the last lap, depending on the Russell car, before we go back to green. And Larry Perkins would like to go back to green because he's got a bloke in a Shell Falcon just up in front of him. I think he's earmarked for a bit of special attention, right, Larry?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind having a... I like actually seeing him that close. It's sort of almost like you got him in your sights, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I can't wait to get that rid of that pace car and get cracking.
Well, You've got a few of those smaller cars in front of you, the 2-litre cars, so I guess by the time you get up Mountain Straight for the first time, it'll be on for young and old.
Yeah, no doubt about it, and yeah, it's going to have to be on for young and old. Whoever wants to win this race is going to have to press on.
Larry, we've seen a couple of cars fall over under the yellow flag going slow. Is it hard to drive these cars slow when they're set up to do 200-300 Ks all day?
Not in the slightest. I saw that happen, and all I can say is some drivers have done something terribly wrong.
Yeah, but I mean, technically, is it hard on them? Do they overheat? Do you have problems with oil pressure?
Well, certainly not in my car.
God.
Oh, Mulray, give him a break. He'll start with the Castrol out
Not
again.
using the Castrol lubricant. I was talking to the Castrol rep the other day, Larry. He told me that with this new synthetic oil, you actually get an additional 25 horsepower. I suppose you'd say it was 50.
Oh, well, look, I always get additional horsepower with Castrol, but I tell you what, though, I'm looking in my mirror there, and I see another fine example of a Commodore there, too. I'm quite proud of that sitting there behind me.
Don't tell me you just happened to build the engine for it.
Yeah, and the rest of the car, too, I might add.
That wouldn't be Tony Longhurst, would it?
That's correct.
OK, Larry, lovely for the chat. We'll send the invoice to Castrol.
No worries at all.
OK, mate. Well, Richard Hayes down in the pits, and I think the most disappointed person must certainly be Kiwi Paul Radisich.
Thank you, Mike. I should say you're right. Paul, it was all going so well. What's happened?
Well, it looks like it's a little bit more terminal than what we'd hoped for. We thought it might be a plug or a lead or something minor like that, but obviously it's a little bit more internal.
You were running in second place. You were the quickest man on the circuit before you came in. It must be a terrible disappointment.
Well, that's motor racing, as Glenn said. That's what's happened. You have to be prepared for the worst, and when it happens, well, you say that's the way it goes. So, sure, we're disappointed, but maybe we'll come back and have another shot at it another time.
You'll be back next year, then?
Well, if somebody invites me, I'll come back, yeah.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you.
Thank you, Richard, and commiserations to Paul Radisich. Pace car. Down Conrod Straight. Let's check them out on the race score and have a look at the top running combos. Johnson and Bow. Lap 86. 350 ahead of the Perkins Hansford Castrol Commodore. Then Longhurst and O'Brien in the Benson and Hedges car. Brock and Mazira are next in the Telecom Mobile Net Commodore. Percy and Ingle in the Coca-Cola Commodore run in 5th spot. 6th is, of course, Wayne Gardner and Neil Crompton. 7th is Colin Bond and Anders Olofsson, the Winfield Commodore. Then it's Bradley Jones and Craig Lowndes, the second of the Mobile Net cars. Crick and Scott, great effort at the Pinnacle Motorsport car. And then 10th spot, number 9, get out your Synovus. The Falcon is still there. We'll be back in just a moment. Bathurst, the 1994 Tooheys 1000 continues. We're on lap 87, 161, with a race time of 4 hours, 1 minute and 30 seconds. The lights have gone out on the Mazda MX-6 pace car, and we expect a resumption of racing green next time they come along pit straight. The rest of the field trying to catch up very quickly. And before the break, you heard Larry Perkins say that he has one thing in mind, and that's taking it straight up to John Bow. Keeping in mind, Peter Brock and Tony Longhurst are directly behind Perkins. So we have the makings here of a fascinating hour.
In fact, the top 8 cars are line astern. The real interest when the restart takes place in a matter of moments is going to be those